Something is deeply wrong. You can feel it. So what has happened to us? And what should we do about it? Join the Finding Gnosis show. It's an open panel for people trying to figure out what's really going on in this strange existence and what we should be doing while we're here. Join us as we all find Gnosis together. Gnosis is knowledge. We need to find out what's going on. We need to find out what we should be doing. Chat soon on the Finding Gnosis show.
Hey guys, so hopefully I'm hearable. Oh, no problem, Jack. He says, my apologies, meant to forward to the stream. No worries. Thank you for even thinking about that. I appreciate it. So, hey guys, nice to see you here. Hey Andy, it's lady time. May they be blessed with the divine wisdom of Sophia. Indeed. All right. And actually, well, he's not running our country really, so we can't really blame anything on him. He's like most presidents, just not doing anything that he said he would. So there are some things that I'm going to talk about that are going on here. And thank you for promoting the show over at Jack's. I appreciate that. So yeah, we have our first guest, and I know she and I will be on the same page on some stuff that went on today. How are you doing today, Crystal?
Hi, Emily. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So I know you probably saw the Fauci hearings, did you not?
Well, I mean, I've heard the talk of what went on. I kind of avoid stuff like that per se. I know we all know what he is, so.
Yep. Probably not a good idea, as the Babylon Bee said, to keep a perjury diary, really, that they can read from. But 111, I just heard some of it in the car, 111 pleading the fifth. So I just couldn't believe that. And the questions were so direct, you know, if you didn't discard or falsify documents, that's a really easy no answer to a question. So, but yeah, I know you had some poetry you wanted to share. There's so much going on. I want to talk about the shredding of rare books for AI that's going on, and the executive order that led to what's going on with the data centers. Thomas Massey and Margaret Taylor Greene are saying some interesting things about president. And yeah, and then there's some weird stuff coming out from NASA right now. So I know there's a divergent range of opinions on some of that. But without further ado, go ahead and present what you were talking about with me that you wanted to present and why.
Oh, well, I mean, when I was on the panel the other day with Peter, and he was trying to talk, and there was just so much negativity in the chat, just continual negativity against him. And I mean, we all know we are not all going to think the same things about our reality, or, you know, we're not carbon copies. We just don't think everything the same about everything. There's just no way we ever are going to. But there's a lot of people that the comments they make is mostly all negative. And there is also something that does bother me about in the chat that it's God's fault that children are abused. You know, it's all God's fault. He's allowing it to happen. Well, humans have free will. And when someone says it's God's fault that that's happening, they're taking the total onus and responsibility off of the people who are actually doing the crimes. You know, giving them, you know, totally exonerating them, basically. And we do have free will to do or not to do whatever we want. So it just spurred me to write a poem, which I hardly ever do. And it didn't exactly copy paste over the way I had it, but I'll try to read it.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, it's called YouTube Voights, and a lot of people know what voight is. It means bottom of YouTube. So it starts out, as each day passes in the YouTube world, there are cement chatters who stay on the couch curled, languishing in their sorrowful negativity. Insults and criticisms are their only activity. They wake up each day with that same pitiful attitude, saying the same things over and over, no matter what latitude, blaming God for all of the crimes against children, never once considering it's the humans that are the villains. Perhaps some spiritual understanding would help to benefit you, to make better determinations and show what is really true. Humans have free will and decide their actions themselves. To blame God for humans' actions is of no help. Open your mind and let more knowingness enter. Instead of wallowing in your own bigoted temper, we as humans must make more positive efforts, because we know there is sometimes little justice in the courts, to uphold each other and lend a helping hand. Rise up, get off your ass, and make a stand. Otherwise, you have no one to blame but yourself for what goes on in the world while you sit on a shelf.
That was wonderful, Crystal. And yeah, we are all responsible for our own actions. And what you said is pretty important. I mean, you know, that's one thing that you see them attack Jack a lot about the Bible, because, you know, just because he, you know, references it. But Cougar Doomer, who's an atheist, referenced it the other day. You know, when you are held to these certain standards that are a person's own standard of what they're used to, then they, you know, it's kind of a ridiculous standard sometimes, because the real answer to a lot of things is I don't know. We're all just doing our best to figure it out, and whether that be a, you know, clergy member or an atheist. So, so holding people to a line that if there's a God in this universe, it's such a big question. We don't know so much stuff. I mean, when Cougar Dimmer yesterday was talking about the speed of light and pi, and how the speed of light, you know, he was talking about the mathematics behind that, how you can measure it to the end point, and it varies. But it's like, I don't understand everything that he's talking about. You know, that's not my wheelhouse. I'm not very good at abstract math. If you get into like language arts and biological science, I'm great. You know, and writing and languages. But if you get into, you know, that type of math and that type of abstract thinking, I'm not so great at all. Almost disabled even, maybe, compared to somebody like him. So we all have different perspectives. We all come with different skill sets, and we're going to view these unknowns very differently. And we're going to have our own anecdotal experiences, which are internal. And like I really agreed with what Kenny said the other day about Peter. I agree with what Andy said about Peter too. People can see things more than one way. You know, because I do think some of Peter's behavior was exactly as Andy was saying. That being said, he probably deals with being attacked a lot, and it can make people develop those behaviors. But, you know, Kenny said, this is internal. It can't really be measured. And I've said that kind of thing a lot about religion and faith. I just look at somebody and I say, you know, do they look like they've really had a transformative experience and they're, you know, changing their life accordingly? And if the answer is yes, then I believe them that they had that experience. I can't know what experience they had, though. And, you know, like I said, it's a vast universe, and what God is, we're all trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I've understood most of what Peter said. Not maybe all of it, but a lot of what he said I've understood. And I was kind of glad to see he and Dom chatting, because I think they have some of the same information between them. But anyway, I just don't think it's productive for somebody who, they never go up on panels, they never put their self out there, you know, but they're going to sit in a chat just continually saying negative things. That's just ridiculous.
And it's easy to do. And I think sometimes, because I'm guilty of it too, and sometimes there's justified anger at something, but it's really personal to that person. Something can strike someone a certain way, and then they're just lashing out. And it's very easy to do that in written form because you're not facing the person. And then you don't think, this person's going to go back and read this. Like, I know Guru and his wife, we're friendly now, and they really respect me, and I do them as well. But there's some things where they rubbed me the wrong way, and we had our differences, and I kind of regret some of the verbiage I used with them because it was because of the ideology, and it was rubbing me the wrong way, and I was saying things about it. But these are people, people with that ideology. So we have to remember that, we may be attacking ideas for good reasons, but attack the idea and not things that are, going to denigrate that person too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the thing is that we all have our own truths. Peter has his own truths. You have your own. I have my own. We all have our own paths that we walk, and they're, like I said, they're never going to be the same. My experiences are never going to be someone else's. They might have similar ones, but I was trying to talk about some of my experiences, and I never even got to finish because of all the cluster that went on. And now I just don't even want to share what I was going to share that day. I mean, because everybody just immediately started just like pouncing on everything. Some of me, mostly Peter, and then it started on them attacking Kenny. And I just was like, no, this is not productive. It's very unkind. And we should never persecute others for their beliefs, because they have the right to have their own beliefs,
For sure.
They just do. We all do.
It's really hard though, because, when you're having discourse, like I remember one time hearing, I used to idolize John Lydon, the lead singer of the Sex Pistols and Public Image Limited, for being very abrasive and direct, because I did think that was, after being in these repressive schools, I thought this is a good skill set. Tell people exactly what you mean. But there's a price with that. And there's a way to do things a little bit better than that sometimes. But he used to say, don't be nice, it's the kiss of death, which I thought that was a cool quote at the time. But then I thought, it depends on what you're talking about. Sometimes it's true, you have to just tell the cold, hard truth. It could be a matter of life and death to tell the truth and make people mad at you, make them not like you, or deal with the fact that they don't. But the flip side of that is when you can tell somebody something decently, obviously, and not personalize it, not turn it into that now I hate this person because they think these things, that are things that maybe they're things from your past that you no longer believe in, and you see them a certain way because you're equating them with other people. That sometimes is also the issue,
Yeah, Andy, I'm not talking about you, Andy, so don't think that I'm talking about you, please.
No, I agreed with Andy about one aspect of things, but, and yeah, I agree with him. Peter's study of history is impressive. So, other personal things aside, and sometimes people just don't like each other, which is okay. They can kind of keep that sparring at a minimum. But yeah, one thing I was thinking about, except I want to give you an opportunity. Did you say you had a second poem and something that you had wanted to present? And before you do that, I'll say this. I also think it's great that D&W is having these feature shows. So I know Kenny is going to have one, and Yerf Dogs is going to have one on Sunday. I don't think they put the little thumbnail together yet. I'm going to moderate that one. That's going to be really good. Kenny's having one on Tuesday, I believe. Gary Yourofsky will be on Monday. These are very divergent ways of thinking. And so, yeah, before we get into other things, yeah, what did you want to present that you were afraid to present that day?
Oh, no, I was just going to tell some of my experiences, because Peter was saying that the negative side will try to take you out, basically. And I knew exactly what he was talking about.
And I made some jokes about that, because I do tend to lighthearted troll when I think something is silly or something, but I don't totally think it's silly. Do I think maybe there's something to that? There could be. I don't know. But, in chat, you can kind of get in the habit of making silly jokes, and then that could be taken harshly by the other party.
Yeah. I mean, from my own experience, I know that people can be affected by negative entities. They can be it can affect what they do and don't do. I know this for a fact. Now, that's from my own experience. So, it's hard to explain that to people. And, they have the right to believe that's not true. But Peter believes it, and I do too, because I've seen too many things happen in my life, and just the opposite as well. Like I was trying to say, there's been times whenever I shouldn't have been able to survive, but I did. So, I was just going to share some of those experiences, but I'm not going to go into it. I'll tell you, on the side personally sometimes, Emily, between you and I, but I'm just not going to even go out there and try to say anything more because of the reaction that happened the other day. I just don't feel comfortable with it. So
no worries.
There was something that I saw recently that I'd like to make a presentation on eventually, but I have to try to be able to get my device to let me do what I want to do. So that's, of course, not ready because I have to figure out how to work some things now because I'm on a different phone and it doesn't work the same way as before when I made videos. But anyway, I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Yeah, one thing that I was gonna here's the thing that's funny. It would be cool if I could just do nothing but this because then I could be organized. But I just do things in between other things. So I jotted down on St. Jude paper some notes. Guns, literally, that's what I wrote here because there was some 2A stuff on. Susceptible to brainwashing, thug culture. Oh my God, I guess I figured I'd know what I was talking about. I kind of do. I know what I was reading about at the time. Data centers, executive order, shredding of rare books, paper, pencils, and brains. I know what that's about, but this looks so funny. Thomas Massey, fairy tales, and contrary to Dr. Israel. So these are but yeah, this one's really interesting to me. So I wrote, indomitable spirit is going away, and that is horrible. I know what I was thinking about at the time. And I put this too. Used to teach us to reach for the stars. Now we reach for the lowest thing possible. So yeah, defeatist culture. That's what I was thinking about there. So I'll just talk about that. I know you probably have some thoughts on it too, but I was watching, it came in my feed because I really like gymnastics and figure skating. And I have a cousin who's pretty high up in gymnastics. And I was thinking about the old gymnasts, like the Mag 7 gymnast from 1996. And, we know now that they were undergoing quite a bit of abuse, but at the same time, they were wonderful gymnasts and they were respectful, nice girls, and they were really high achievers, and everything was, done with precision and beauty and grace counted in the sport. And now they're taking more care of their mental health and they're calling people out who abuse these athletes. But at the same time, the sport has declined in terms of really reaching for the overall person being good sportsmanship. You see people throwing fits out there when they don't win or acting like it really doesn't matter to them whether they win or not. It's kind of like this defeatist culture. They no longer want us to, shoot for the stars. They want us to kind of, we're all kind of in the same bad boat rather than really having the opportunity to go as far as we can go by the fact that, we're fighting just to have our basic needs met in many instances in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And, so that pioneering spirit is just not there anymore for people. What do you think about that? And I agree with what Jack says here. Absolutely. Those in power cultivated this.
Yeah. And unfortunately, everything's been infiltrated. I mean, things just aren't the same. And I mean, I know they probably were always infiltrated, but to the degree they are now, so sports, music industry, Hollywood, the racing industry, all the industries are infiltrated with not so great people. And I can't imagine being in a competition, in a sport competition now, and having to endure whatever they endure. Now, I'm not, by any means excusing their behavior, but that we just have no idea what they're probably going through. That's all, what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
You
And,
remember
okay.
remember when other countries used to have the Olympics, Emily?
Mhm.
And like the Russian girls would come over here that did ballet and ice skating and all these type of Olympic sports, and then they kept them under their thumb the whole time because they were afraid that these athletes would defect to the US. I mean, they had it so bad in their country. They probably would have gladly loved to have stayed here, but I remember a long time ago that's the way it used to be. Now, I don't really know how things are anymore. I just suspect that it's more infiltrated with more negative than it ever was.
Yeah, the thing about the Olympics is I remember that was one time when I was a kid when I would actually see things about where other people lived. And they had a lot of, because our school, when I was little, I went to a Catholic school. And, I know you probably have an anti-communist kind of thing, and that's fine. I respect that. I grew up around that. But in our school, they were very big on Reagan and very anti-communist. So it was almost to the point of hating Russians, like discriminating against them. Like we had a Russian student one time, and he went through absolute hell once the kids knew that he was from Russia. So like the mentality went that far into just like demonizing these people. And I remember watching the Olympics and seeing Gordieva and Grinkov skating, and they did a little thing about their life. And my mom pointed out, she said, "Do you see that subway? Do you see how clean it is? Do you see and she was explaining to me how everything was paid for, like they're good athletes and they're taken care of, and stuff." And my mom wasn't pro-communist by any means, but she was just pointing out like this vicious hatred of these people. She said, Russia's a big place with a lot of people to feed. So they decided this was the way they wanted to live there. And that's what they did. Now I know there's a lot more to it than that, obviously. And one of the reasons that things didn't work out for them was fighting the Afghanistanis, doing all that battle for oil, to the point where you're broke. But anyway, the place though was when it fragmented like it did in the 90s. Those people had never experienced that kind of a situation. So then in comes the crime, and people were actually wishing they had that terrible repressive regime back because at least they could eat. And then others feel very differently. They're like, I wouldn't trade the freedom for any bit of comfort in the world. So but it was the only time that I ever got to see the lifestyles of people outside of my little immediate area, and think about it and see them as human beings.
Yes, I feel like the leaders of our country are really not enemies with these other countries like Russia and China and such. I've never had any like hard negative feelings about Russia. And we know everything is rigged anyway.
Oh, a lot of it's rigged, absolutely.
It's theater, they're putting on the show, blah, blah, blah. So,
and they have their judging block because it's not like, even if it's not rigged, you can see that certain judges are scoring people a certain way in a block against another athlete. And you're just like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because good example in the gymnastics, this is for gymnastics nerds, of which there may not be very many, but Tatiana Gutsu, she's a lovely little gymnast, but Shannon Miller did the most perfect piece of gymnastics you've ever seen. And just by a fraction of a point, she lost the gold, and Tatiana had made some mistakes. You can go and watch on YouTube these complete competitions, and there's no way Shannon Miller shouldn't have been the all-around gold medalist, but, they have that communist block in the voting, so.
Yeah, I was thinking more of the leaders of the country, though.
Oh, yeah, of course.
They
on a bigger note, yeah.
They act like enemies, but then I just don't really think they are. I think there's a big plan worldwide, that we don't know what all the details of it are, but I mean, look at Putin. If you look at Putin's face now and compare it to the Putin a long time ago, it doesn't even look like the same person. They switch these people out, and a lot of people say that, but if you look at a young Putin, the Putin that's in there now does not. They have similarities, but to me, it's kind of obvious they're not the same person. But I actually have a lot of admiration for some Russian ways of living. Those Anastasia books. I thought maybe I mentioned that to you a long time ago, but the Anastasia books, there's a whole lot of them, like 11, 12. I've read them all. And it's the books are about how to live your life in harmony with God and nature, basically. It tells you how to set out your property, how to lay out your whole plat of property, where to put your garden, where to put this, where to put that, where it all works in synchronicity. And see, Russia evidently gives people plots of land. Now, back when these books were written, they did. I don't know if they still do that. But, these people that have these plots of land, they grow their own food. And of course, they sell the extra. So this also provides for them a way to support themselves and to not have to have a job outside of their home, because their home is self-sustaining. It feeds them, plus they sell any extra food that they grow. And of course, they do all kinds of, craft work and sewing, and the women do all these beautiful things that they create with their hands. But I always thought that would be an admirable way to live, and honestly, we should all be trying to be self-sustaining and growing some food for ourselves, at least, even if we don't sell any, because we know how precarious our system is. It's just so precarious, and it's just hanging by a thread right now.
Yeah, and that's what you just described would be folkism. And I feel like both extremes of systems destroy folkism, and they destroy culture. This plastic crap, corporatocracy, that is what capitalism is at the moment. It doesn't foster culture and folkism, and radical communism certainly doesn't either. The state down type of communism. So you look at countries like Switzerland, for example. They take care of their own people, and I feel like nationalism gets a bad rap. People that are more socialist leaning will act like nationalism is racist and evil. And in reality, and then other people, are anti-globalism because they don't want to, join the globe and have anybody lording over them globally. That really is against culture and folkism, right? So the reality is it's actually pro-global solidarity to be a nationalist, in my opinion. And by that, I mean, and that's why when Trump ran the first time, I was supportive of somebody that had never been a president before, and I did not have any use for Hillary Clinton after knowing what she did in her law career. And one of the things that Trump talked about back in 2016 was the TPP, or the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So I used to go around telling people about that because Hillary Clinton was pushing passing this, and she was actually talking about it openly, omitting the worst parts of it. One thing in that, it was going to open up all this trade and make everybody so free. She presented it that way. All you have to do is throw the word freedom on something and people believe it. But the TPP it actually had provisions in it where if you got online talking about a country, for example, or talking about Islam, for example, let's say you don't like Islam, that would have provisions in it where you would be creating an unfair trade barrier with Islamic countries. So it would really cut down on speech. It had speech and tech stuff in it. So Trump, when he was running, actually went around talking about that. And then she backed out and was like, yeah, I don't support it either all of a sudden. So that kind of stuff, and the things that he said he was going to do for the people, he was going to have a single payer healthcare plan, and that never materialized. By the end of that presidency, it was a joke compared to what he ran on. And then we have the same thing occurring again. We were not going to do any more forever wars, and we're doing them all over the world right now. And we're not in Mexico worried about anything going on there, even though there are drug cartels out the wazoo there, but we're in Venezuela. And why is that? Because that's where the third largest oil shale in the world is. Duh. So, and people do understand this. And that's the thing, on the radical extreme ends of things, when you have the woke extreme end and the, right-wing extreme end, you have your problems. But there's nothing wrong with being an insular nationalist country that takes care of itself and its people and doesn't bother others, and tries to not need others for things as much as possible. And that was what was so beautiful about the Olympics. You can have your own nation and your own set of values, and then but you can also meet up with others that have theirs politely and share and exchange experiences. But at the end of the day, you walk away from that, not seeing eye to eye with these people you've just met. You're doing your own thing. And to me, that's true diversity. It doesn't mean that you make people be exactly like everybody around them, but you can be around other people and find common ground and be respectful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To go back to what you started talking about in that segment, Trump said he was going to have Hillary Clinton put in jail. You remember when
another lie. Yeah.
when all those emails came out or whatever? But Emily, did you know that Trump and Hillary Clinton are related in some way?
I did not know that.
They are. And then someone asked him about, after he became president, about putting Hillary Clinton, and there's an actual video recording of it. And he said, "Oh, that's not necessary now because I won or something." But I think that, I mean, I've just seen so much stuff about the Clintons and these politicians that it's hard for me to have faith in any of them, because I don't think that what people are putting out is misinformation or lies about these politicians. There's just too much of it out there, and so you can see the truth. But yeah, as far as us with other countries, I mean, if I met a Russian or a Chinese person here where I live, I would just treat them just like anyone else. It wouldn't make me treat them any different.
Sure. The flip side is one thing I don't like is Islam to me, and this, I don't want to say anything offensive because this isn't even my channel, but just want to speak on what I really think. But yeah, and I don't believe anything harmful toward others or anything like that. But to me, it's the most dangerous of the Abrahamic faiths. And, but that being said, there are some Muslim people that are great. I look at that though, and I look at that part of the world, and I think that part of the world, you got to realize there's like a cradle of civilization thing happening in that part of the world, in Iraq and Iran. Some of the most amazing mathematics and art and writing came from that place. And then you see when Islam was introduced, and bam, the art becomes crap. There's no more, they had leper colonies into the 1950s in Iran because they, weren't fixated on curing illness, and people would die. They didn't believe in doing autopsies because, hey, after you're going to die, who cares? It's only your soul that matters. So that religion and what they do also to women, obviously, is just, it's very much at odds with Western civilization and an enlightenment. And also that's unfair racially to that group of people where that's dominating their life, because those people had an enlightenment. This just pushed them backwards, in my opinion. And when they use that term reverts for Europeans coming to Islam, that's not even an appropriate term, because it wasn't our faith ever in the way back, except when it was forced during Berber slavery on some Europeans. So that being said, people can go and do whatever they want. They should read texts for themselves and believe whatever they want for themselves. And people should have the freedom anywhere they live to do whatever they want. But considering that, like, the penalty of leaving that faith is death, and when you really look at what it will do to a society, calling people phobic when they want to speak out against an ideology or a religion because they don't want it to be part of their lives. Just like if you had people doing throwback Christianity, stoning people and things like that, I wouldn't want that either. And you do have people doing that. And it's at odds with our Bill of Rights and our Constitution. So, what say you about the right to criticize things like this being fundamental, and what you think is the biggest clash for our way of life out there that's maybe one of the bigger threats?
Well, if we were being forced to be of a particular religion, just like with the Russians and their communism or whatever, those people, they grow up in that. They were born in that. And like I said, I wouldn't treat them any different. And, I've been studying all kinds of cultures, and especially recently, Islam, Sufi, Sikh, all of the, should I say, they have some really beautiful things in their learnings, but ultimately, I don't really know the big picture of these other religions. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I was born into it. I don't have that knowledge and learning from it. I've only just looked at a little bit of it recently, but you know, there's just been so many things going on. And to go back one more time to the president thing, there is a young girl who did a study and mapped out that every president, they come from the same bloodline.
Wouldn't be surprised.
It's a really young girl who did this, like a young teen or something. I don't know if I can find that again, but I'll try to look for it. It was quite interesting to know that every president that's been a president, and there was maybe one or two that wasn't. It was a very small amount. They're all intermixed in the bloodline. So isn't that kind of interesting?
It is. You made me think of something too, related and unrelated, but and in my family, we have some weird relationships to, different lines, and you think, oh, there's a lot of interconnection there with things. But de Tocqueville, who visited America, and he told them, and this is interesting. He said, "You're breeding all these slaves, and you're growing them like large. They're making them get like large and strong, so they can do more work. And they have no loyalty to you. They're going to see you as oppressing them. So they're not going to, once they outnumber you and they're big and strong, what do you think will happen?" And it's interesting that he said that because he said, when you left Europe and you left monarchies, these were your people and this was your royal family that you felt like you had a kinship towards. But and you were, even at that, you rebelled to this degree to where you had a war, you fought these people to the death to leave and do your own thing. So don't you think these people that you're beating and breeding this way are going to do the same to you? So it's very, very interesting that he said that in the way back, and that people, when they're greedy, don't see the end of the line. Just like with this, with fracking and all the earthquakes we're having in weird places, the fact that you have to inject hundreds of chemicals into the ground to get to break up the rocks, and it's getting into the water and into the air. But who cares? Because money is the mentality, and we could have a type of prosperity that doesn't involve all of this harm. What do you say about that?
Well, it's all about the Benjamins. So there are certain people that have been set up to, how should I say it, be wealthy, become wealthy, be wealthy, for a long, long time. This has been going on, back to the 1930s and even prior to that. I mean, some major shenanigans have gone on in our history of this world and especially in the U.S. It's kind of like, it's that same saying, it's a big club and we're not in it, unless you were born into that. So us common people, we just have to do the best we can with the way the world is. I mean, we just don't even have a choice. So
yeah, funny you bring up that quote from Carlin, because Carlin also did a whole thing one time about language. So this is a good segue into a topic. And ladies in the chat or that are just watching, please feel free to join us. It's always good to have a divergent range of opinions talking about these things, and you don't have to get on camera or anything. Love to hear from you. And here's Objective Ethics. Glad to see you, brother. I am having didn't feel good today, but I took half a day off work, so I didn't have to be so stressed. That's nice. And I hope you're having a great day too. So yeah, Carlin also said something about language. So, and this is the thing, economically and in some other ways, I would be leftish leaning, but in a ton of ways, I'm rightish leaning. And so I'm an independent, is how I put it, because that's how it is. And, but that being said, I really agreed with this. I don't believe people should be cruel, but Carlin talked about how we're changing the language to be so overly empathetic to where you can't talk. So it's like, and I had a friend come onto my page, and he's a left-leaning person. He's a nice person, but he's so far left-leaning that I just made a joke about myself. I said, what do you get when you combine a spaz and a dork? You get a spork, which I thought was kind of funny because I was using a spork at the time. And I was referring to myself. I said, asking for a friend, meaning me. And so he wrote me a whole direct message like, do what?
I said that was a good one, Emily.
Yeah, I felt like it was. But, because of his mentality, he wrote to me right away with a big spiel about being ableist and how I shouldn't be ableist and, and this and that. And it actually made me feel kind of bad. But then I thought, this is ridiculous. I can't even make fun of myself, and because we'd been talking about autism, and I'd shared a video of that young lady that was put in that Judge Rottenberg Center. And so I thought, does he think I'm making fun of, other people with disabilities? I'm just talking about myself being a little bit of a weirdo and spastic and dorky. So to me, when you can't even call things what they are in a joking manner, and sometimes caustic language is needed, of course, up to a point in decent society. You don't just run up to people and point out something you see if you don't need to, and it's hurtful, obviously. But it's okay to use direct language sometimes. And how do you feel about like navigating the world with people who are now ready to place a label on you for misstepping? Like the left used to be the leave me alone people. I agree with Rob Schneider. He said back in the 90s, being a liberal meant leave me alone, don't label me, I don't care about your sexuality, leave mine alone, that kind of thing. And now it's the opposite. It's like, here are my labels, you have to use them, and here's some more that I want you to use, and you better not say that. And it's weird. It's a weird flip. I don't know if you've observed it the same way.
Yeah, well, I've noticed that people do tend to like lump others into like a big group and a big label. I feel like the labels actually limit us, even if you label yourself, really, when you think about it, it's like putting you in a box of that category and you're just stuck in this box. I haven't, my whole life I've had this thing about that. There's a recent word in the past maybe 5 or 10 years that, say, for instance, someone was defending themselves, verbally or whatever. And then someone says, oh, you're being combative. And I'm like, what is that? How does that even apply to this? Combative would be like somebody physically, doing something physical. Someone's just speaking. They're not being combative. They're just, defending themselves or saying what they think. But I think we should be careful of labels of just like lumping everybody in, just like, which I probably did that myself earlier, but,
Yeah.
But if somebody tries to put labels on you, then you really should look at that person and think, why are they doing that?
Yeah, even you made me think about a weird memory, but this girl was insisting. I'm left-handed, and actually in Catholic school, we had an Irish Catholic teacher who made a big deal about this, kind of like my penmanship, and they actually acted like being left-handed was some kind of weird crime or disability or something. But I remember I just did things the way that right-handed people did them, but I did them my own way. I didn't want any special anything, and she was insisting I take lefty scissors, and you can't cut with them. Like I couldn't. They just were dull and weird, and I couldn't cut with them. So I went around her and went back to the bin to get normal people scissors, But I just thought that's such an intense desire to force some kind of disabledness on me for that. And I think we do that with people with problems too. Like, oh, that's a good topic. So like the Judge Rottenberg Center, I encourage people to look that up. And the girl's name is Jennifer Musumba, Musubma, I believe that's her name. Really interesting. She has autism and OCD, and they put her in this school. This school still exists. where they put like shocking devices on them to stop them from their stimming behaviors and other things like this. It's a residential school. But that being said, like in the Gen X situation, if a child was different, they were just treated like, you're a weirdo, stop being weird, you're embarrassing your family, and the mentality was kind of like, you toughen this out of this person. And then fast forward to nowadays, and it's like everything is a disability. Poor you. Let's go cry in a corner about it for 10 years. And I think that's very infantilizing. I think a happy medium where, yes, there are people that have problems, and yes, we have empathy for them, but you can't wallow in it. You do have to, and that's what the inclusion model was supposed to be in public schools for autistic kids. It was going to be, we're not going to put them off in a room by themselves to, wallow in that there's something different about them all day. We're going to put them with the regular kids, but they'll have someone helping them, and they're going to learn to cope with being in the world that's kind of a world they maybe don't want to be in. But if they're ever going to be successful and independent, they have to learn how to try to do it and be uncomfortable. So it's like it's one thing to try to be decent with people and make them feel more comfortable. But then if you go too far with that, you turn them into these giant babies that can't do anything. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, if someone has a disability, they should certainly be helped to try to overcome some of it as much as they can. I mean, that's the best thing to do. Not to be like the Munchausen syndrome type thing where, they are looked at as being ill all the time or whatever. But
and they make money off of it. They make money off of making people disabled and ill all the time. Maybe would be one motivation for it.
Well, there was some immigrants up north that were, I don't know if you heard about that. There were some immigrants up north where they were claiming that their children were autistic. And so they were getting these extra benefits and funds and, all these extra perks. And the children were not really autistic. They were just working the system to get this money out of the U.S. while they're an immigrant here. They were not even Americans. They were immigrants. But I can't remember what state that was, but it was up north somewhere. Michigan, Minnesota, somewhere up there. I don't know, but it was quite the scandal because they were all being funneled through this one particular agency or medical thing or whatever, and it was just really a front to embezzle money from the U.S. So.
Yeah, we have a lot of that going on, and I had it going on in my job when I was doing. And this ties into the Fauci hearings. They brought up housing stuff. So we had funding from the feds to give to people for rent relief. They did that in every state. They allocated it to the states, but it was Fed funding. And you had to use it all by a certain date or it went back. And it was only for apartments at first. People could, if you're in a house, too bad, lose your house. We don't care, basically. And also you had to have only that particular illness. It had to tie into why you had a problem. And then we only would give like 6 months of help. So a lot of people, and we only would give certain amounts. And they had 4 of us doing it for the entire state. So I remember us working like dogs to try to do all these calculations. They made us do them all ourselves. So like you had people trying to make ends meet working at DoorDash, for example. And so we'd have to go through all of their unemployment, then their DoorDash for certain months. And then it would change every month. So one month we might help with this much of their rent and another month that much. And then we had to get the landlord to agree to it. Well, a lot of landlords, that they didn't want to lose their building. So they were like, well, that won't work because I don't want 400 this month and 600 that month. I want the rent paid. And so they sometimes wouldn't work with us. And then later on, they got more funding because this was more of a pervasive disaster. So they got funding for people that were just affected by the economy. And then you could get 12 months of help, and it was a lot of help, including utilities. And then they added housing. Then they ran out of money, and that was the end of the program. But before that, they did all of that. Well, we had scammers who would write in, and you could sort of see the earmarkings of the scam. One I found, like, they would pretend to be a landlord, and it was really just somebody's husband, and there was no, apartment. It was just where they lived. And then there were people also from out of state that have out of state licenses, and they would ask for thousands and thousands of dollars in rent. And it was a scam. And some of them got through because they put it in a big Deloitte database and no longer had us doing it by hand. So I know a lot of scammers got through, and I thought that was so unfair that some of the first people who were the worst off when we were doing it by hand probably got rejected or didn't get enough help. And later on, when they were providing more assistance, scammers pushed through and probably got, and they were not prosecuting or pursuing those scammers. So they got away with thousands and thousands of dollars for non-existent apartments and things. So it's so crazy how the system can be worked that way, and I know you've seen things like that as well because you've spoken to that.
Yeah, you remember the COVID money funds that some of the employers could get, and then people were, scamming from that.
Indeed.
I can't remember what it was called, but you could take out PPP or this or that or whatever, loan with the government, and get funds from the government.
There were some very wealthy people also taking out those PPP loans that people were outing that, like millionaire YouTubers that got PPP loans. That was just unbelievable. But some of these programs and things and the way they're run, this ties into something going on now that I wanted to talk about. So Trump today, and I saw it on The Patriotic Blonde, and I encourage people to look that up on X. She posts a lot of interesting things, but Trump literally said something to the effect of, in fact, I have it here. I can't play an X video on his channel, but it says, "We're fighting wars. It's not possible for us to take care of Medicare, daycare, Medicaid, all these things." So I played it just to make sure she wasn't misquoting. So the idea there is that he wants them to start allocating these things to the states. So this is where things get all messed up. So that's what Obama did with Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. What they did was they passed the Affordable Care Act, which was going to be our national health care plan. So now everybody's going to have health care. And people don't understand why that was such a mess here. They just say socialism. Well, there was no socialism there. And by the way, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not a socialist, and neither is the guy in New York. It's a joke. But anyway, this healthcare plan was underwritten by insurance companies. And what they put in there were provisions for doctors to opt out. So if you lived in one state and you get this insurance, let's say it's an Aetna PPO, you could have the same Aetna PPO, but you didn't get it from the marketplace, the doctor will take it. If you did get it from the marketplace, which is the Affordable Care Act, they won't take it. So there are people who would buy this insurance, and it was pretty expensive, by the way. That's another thing people don't know. In certain states, you had to fall in the gap. So you couldn't be so poor that you qualified for Medicaid and get it, but you also couldn't make too much and get it. You had to be kind of in between, working class, kind of poor. And then it was kind of expensive. It was like $3 to $4. I remember I got on the Aetna PPO one once, and it was like $340 something a month. And then most doctors don't take it, so I stopped doing that right away. But yeah, it was quite a joke. It was allocated the funds differently in different states. So it was a free-for-all mess. It had capitalism all over it. So it wasn't like we were pulling together our resources to give everybody a great national health care plan and then letting private insurance companies compete fairly with it. It wasn't like that at all. And by the way, they have like single payer healthcare in Switzerland. It's not exactly a socialist healthcare plan, but actually it's probably better than a socialist healthcare plan. It's very successful. I think they're a great example of taking care of your own people.
Yeah, sometimes you can pay less for something, just paying a cash and not running the insurance on it, like at Walmart. People don't know that, but you can. There is a certain list of drugs that, excuse me, you can pay cash for, totally outside. You have to tell them not to run your insurance. And I think if you go to a medical office, I mean, I've had times whenever I got a prescription cheaper from going to a particular pharmacy here who does not take any insurance. They just fill prescriptions just for like, you can say you're uninsured even if you're not, even if you have insurance. But in any case, you can get prescriptions from them sometimes cheaper than you could get with that prescription going through your prescription plan. So there's a place called Gen Scripts here that does that. But it's interesting about the whole medical, because I worked for Blue Cross before in community care. So I'm a little bit familiar with some of this stuff, but I had medical terminology and all that kind of thing. But so I could see things going on the other side of the medical industry, in the insurance part. But yeah,
sure.
I don't know. I mean, our country's medical plans are pretty broken,
Yeah, they are. And what's really, though, disgusting that people don't understand is that this is breaking our laws and some of our constitutional rights. So Medicare is a federal entitlement program. States can't take that over. It's Title 18 of the Social Security Act. It guarantees uniform eligibility, benefits, protections, non-discrimination rules, due process rights. So if states run Medicare, those guarantees disappear or they vary. So, unequal access by the state you live in is already violating that. So, so what he's proposing we do, you can't really do legally unless you change our laws. And just like when George W. Bush wanted to, rewrite parts of the Constitution and everybody screamed no, I think we would scream no again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, all of that is so controversial about our Constitution, and and I did find it out there on the internet. It was said that America filed bankruptcy, the United States of America filed bankruptcy, and they did. You can find it. You can find it out there.
Scary.
And ever since that happened, that it kind of took away some of our rights and our documents that, we hold to be true. Not to mention the fact that most of those people that wrote the document were Freemasons. So, I mean, you have that as well. So,
yeah, for sure. And that's an interesting can of worms.
If you think about going back in our history and seeing who created all these documents, and then you have to say, why did they do it? What are the implications? And are these documents even valid today? I don't know. I don't have the answers to those questions,
Oh, we have an interesting, I don't either, but we have a really interesting set of comments here. So Nibble says, although it's simpler to just rip down the freaking flock cameras, and OE asks what the flock cameras are. So they're putting flock cameras up in communities where they can basically film you at any time. And, we have this fusion with bioinformatics where they are facial recognition technology and stuff. And it's probably more now. I remember reading that there were at least 8 people that were wrongfully facially recognized. They were not the person that they were looking for. They were arrested and had to be let out later. So that's pretty scary. But there actually are people fighting the flock cameras. So let me see if I can find that and share the screen. But although I don't want to share videos, but there's this wonderful video on X. I'll put a link to it if I can find it real quick, of this man who did a single person protest against the flock cameras. He's whacking it with a stick, and he's screaming that I don't need the government watching me. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Here it is. I'll put a link to it in the chat there. But and that if he has anybody poking their nose in his business, he'll just chop their nose off. Was his verbiage there. But there are some people. We need to be like the Albanians who said, "You're not going to take our land to build your resort." We don't have to allow these violations of our Constitution. And these flock cameras are ridiculously invasive. And even, things like neighbors having cameras, there were people having a big problem with that. Well, how much worse is this than your neighbor's camera pointing at your window,
Well, what comes to my mind first is the data centers are probably going to be, you know, all of these cameras are going to be tied into the data centers. But the problem is, one of the problems, should I say, the government outsources everything to private industries. So when they do this, it's a private industry doing it on behalf of the government.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Okay.
that fusion is a problem in the jails and anything like that. Absolutely.
So then that takes the onus off of the government, takes all the responsibility off of them. They have a buffer zone now,
Yep.
you know, and that's almost I mean, so many things in the government have just been outsourced to private industry that it's just off the scales, and people don't realize that. So how do we fight back against a private industry doing this on behalf of the government?
And I'm going to tell OE real
what-
quick because I'm sorry, go ahead.
What recourse do we have? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, OE was asking about the use of the term flock and what it meant. And my understanding was I figured it meant like where people flock together, they're going to watch them or something. But there was a company called Flock Safety that was like a license plate reader company, which was one of the first of these kinds of the cameras that were watching cars. So I'm thinking that's where they got the term, but I could be wrong and maybe somebody else knows.
Well, a flock is a group.
Right.
So think of it that way.
Yeah. And this reminds me also, so, you know, the Fahrenheit 451 and Brave New World flock camera world we're fixing to be in. So I saw it was posted on Yerf's X, and then I saw another post in my feed from somebody else. I can't remember who, but they are shredding rare books now for AI. So what they're doing is they're chopping the spine off the book, they're scanning in every page, and then they're destroying the book itself. And these are rare books where there's literally only a few or one printing in the world. And so that's pretty horrifying. And I used to feel bad about collecting books the way that I do in a way because of minimalist culture kind of getting in my head. And I do think, minimalism in certain aspects is a very good thing. Obviously, when you're talking about one of the flaws of capitalism, when it's to this extreme where, just making anything and getting people to want it is good, no matter how wasteful and stupid it all is, all this junk everywhere, that kind of thing I am against. So I kind of wondered, like, why do I have all these books? Some of them I haven't read yet. Some of them are just amazing. Like I got an original copy of The Innocents Abroad by Mark Twain, and like I have autographed Wilson Bryan Key books and stuff. So I have like a thing for like vintage or classic books or books with art in them or that I like. So now I don't feel bad about it at all. I'm like, hey, the more people that collect these freaking books, the better. They burned because of war. We had them going in and burning some of these. I mean, you can imagine what they destroyed in Iraq and Iran of the culture that was there before the hyper-religious one took over. Things that we won't even know what was in them. We'll never get back again. They were even still discovering artifacts in Iran. There's a group that dedicated themselves to doing so. And there's just no telling. It's just like when they do the mountain removal in Appalachia. There are plants there we've never named. But for coal, we'll destroy that, and these plants could save lives. It's one of the most biodiverse regions in the world. So that's what greed will do for you. You'll cut your own nose off to spite your face, basically.
Yes, I've been collecting books for a while. I kind of just like have a little bit of my own little small library here, because I have felt for a long time that something was going to happen to our books, and sure enough, that is what's going on. And on archive.org, some of the books you pull up will have a big Google page right in front of them. That's where Google has taken over that book. Wow. And that's kind of disturbing that it's a Google copy, of that book.
Wow. Oh my God. Yeah. Do you know the guy that wrote, what is the name of that book? Why can't I think of it? the one that kind of rocked the world on the meat industry. He was kind of talking about people that worked in meat processing plants in the way back. And what he was describing was essentially like a spam factory. And that, like, if they cut a thumb off, it just went into the food. And it was things he'd actually seen. They made him rewrite that book about a dozen different times, never satisfied with the ending. They wanted him to omit some things. And so way later on, the version of it that was his actual original version was available. And that's also similar to a lot of other things. Like, I don't know if you've ever been watching an old movie. There was one about it was the same guy that was in that movie with Elizabeth Taylor, the word son in it. I can't think of the movie, but, and this other movie, I can't remember the name of it, but it was basically, the plot was, you know, he was kind of poor and his mother was poor and his mother died. And he went to the Catholic Church asking for a specific like burial plot or where he wanted to bury her. And they weren't going to bury her there. They were going to bury her in this pauper's grave. So he ends up getting very angry because he said, she gave her whole life to you, the church. She worked for the church for years and you won't even let me bury her. And so he got so mad, he like kind of got physical with this priest and accidentally killed him. So the whole movie then goes from there. But at the very end, they fix it and they make it be where the church is kind of a little bit heroic. Because I'm sure whoever was putting out that movie said, okay, we can't have this whole movie and the ending be so anti-church and so anti-capitalism. So they fixed the movie. And I hate that when I'm watching a movie and you know that some writer took over to fix the ending, you know. I don't know if you've ever seen anything where they've done that.
Yeah, I've not seen that movie, but yeah, I mean, we know that there's truth in movies. I know someone was telling someone the other day they couldn't use a movie as an example, but there is truth embedded in all these movies. And of course, there is disinformation as well. I mean, and it's all this goes through certain people before it's even put out to the public as to what we are able to even view, you know. And yes, things are skewed. History is skewed. History is misrepresented.
Yeah, and for sure, what Objective Ethics said, or what Objective Ethics has had Richard Carrier on his program a couple times. And one thing Richard said a long time ago, and someone said this to me too, like, why do you care about the historicity of this or that so much, you know, and who would spend their time, you know, studying all of that for who and for what? You know, they see it as kind of a useless skill. And what Richard said was something to the effect of, whoever controls the narrative of history controls the future. It's what you're going to know about anything. So the historians are some of the most important people in the world for that reason.
Yeah, and there was that, people said before that it was the victors, the winners who wrote the books, like the winners of the wars wrote the books on what actually, you know, what they wanted to portray as what happened. But
yeah, for sure.
I mean, we just have to use our own discernment on everything we look at, period.
Yep. I'm going to add the link again to remind people to come up. Actually, it's pinned down here, so I don't have to do that. Yeah. And, you know, this ties in also to some other things. So they're shredding books to feed them into the machine. By the way, Google also is spraying these mosquitoes in different communities. Let me look it up to make sure I don't spew disinfo without getting it right. But they're spraying into Florida and California these mosquitoes that have been altered with something. I want to state it correctly if I can find it. Let's see. And, you know, okay, here it is. They quietly applied for an EPA permit to release 64 million bacteria-infected mosquitoes into Florida and California over the next few years. And almost nobody is talking about it. Nope, they're not. This would be one of the largest open-air biological experiments in American history, run by a tech company, not a public health agency. The EPA can't allow this to happen. Terrifying. Well, the EPA has been working against us for a long time and working for the corporatocracy and not public health for a long time. But imagine that Google is spraying bacteria-infected mosquitoes into 2 states over 2 years and quietly getting a permit to do so. So what do you think about that, Crystal?
Yeah, I heard of it. I heard of it before, and Well, they're acting like Bill Gates is some authority on a lot of things that he isn't.
Yep.
Yeah. As soon as COVID started, he was like put up as a representation about the viruses and stuff. It's really bizarro. Our world has just become quite bizarre. I mean, I really do keep saying that each day we wake up, we just don't even know what's going to happen, from the time that we went to sleep to the time that we wake up. I guess nothing should surprise us anymore, maybe. I don't know.
Indeed,
I don't,
true.
Myself being, the fact that I have a bioweapon from a tick that, I have this problem now of, the red meat and red meat constituent allergy just because of this tick that had this, alpha galactosidase. So I, for one, know that, bioweapons do exist. They create things to make us ill. They've been doing this to the people, especially in the United States, for a long time. And, some unflattering things about the United States, spraying other countries with stuff. So, it's not. Sorry, that was a call coming through on my phone.
I was going to say you went out. Okay. No worries.
Yeah, it's not a pretty picture whenever you look at the past history and even the current history of what's going on in the world. It's just not a pretty picture, but we have to just, remain steadfast and stand for our truth, our own truth and the truth of others if we must.
Yeah, and I thought I would share a video, even though it's kind of old now. Just so that we could kind of break it up and show things, because if I show my own video, I don't have to worry about copyright. But this was a video I made in the way back about that executive order that was passed. And this was when Robert Kennedy was running for president. Of course, now Robert Kennedy works with Trump in his administration. But at the time, this was to promote Robert. So I think I'll see if I know how to do this correctly. I'm going to present something and let me see how I want to show it on the screen here. So I'll do it like this, and I'll present it like this. No, it won't. That won't be very good. We'll do it like this. There we go. And let's share the screen. There we go. And we'll play the video. Oh, I just had my mic off. I said, there's 4 minutes you'll never get back.
I think I've seen that before. I don't know where, but it looked familiar.
Yep, you watched it once and commented. But yeah.
I think water is going to be our next thing that we need to worry about, besides all the other things. Water is going to be like the next oil, basically. And, we can't live without water. So.
Exactly. I've seen posts where people are saying there's no scarcity of water on this planet, which is insane because they're actually researching how to recycle toilet water and give it to us. So, the fact that I used to say, and I'm, of course, not immune from having devices, but to make a microchip, a tiny little microchip, it takes gallons and gallons and gallons of the most pristine water on Earth, better than anything we're drinking, no matter what kind of water you're getting and what you're doing to it, because it has to be totally pure. And you think about using that to make like a Game Boy, for example, or some other stupid thing. The phones that really, they're useful to a point, but so many microchips. And now the data centers, it was already bad enough. It's unreal. And I am guilty of using AI, obviously, and I do see AI as useful to some degree, but to me, that's the biggest issue. And that's the biggest issue with greed. It's like, even if you believe in a free market, which I do to a degree, I believe that, for the extras, you should have a completely free market. People should be able to own private property. But up to a point, like in the animal kingdom, think about this. Would a group of meerkats, for example, let 2 meerkats decide, hey, we own 3,000 acres and all the water rights, and we might let you other meerkats have some? No animal on the planet would do that. But people in their greed have decided that because they think someday they'll be owning, that they want to be the owning class, and they aspire to be that. So they want it to stay the way that it is, daydreaming that they're going to be in that position. And even if that pans out, and they are, that doesn't make it right when it comes to those things. When it comes to water, healthcare, housing, and food, and education and access to it, these are things that everybody collectively, as an entity that's alive, has a right to, and you don't have an exclusive right to. And so that's where the collectivism comes into play. Everything else is everything else. There are people that are more talented than other people, that are there, just like there are people that might look generally by some people's standards better than other people. That's just what happens. We all like what we like, and we all have certain skill sets. But everybody deserves the right to breathe air and drink water. So your talents and your abilities to achieve more than your neighbor, that's all fine and dandy when you're just talking about having extra things because you worked hard and you were creative and talented. But some of the people that are gobbling everything up are not talented and creative. That's not how they got all of those things. So, we do need, and that is what an equitable system is really about. It's not about saying everybody's exactly the same and capable of achieving the exact same things. It's about saying, yeah, they're not, but they have a right to live. If your neighbor with Down syndrome was drinking filthy water and someone else who didn't have Down syndrome had clean water, you wouldn't really think that was right just because that other person is, less intelligent, for example. We just don't quantify those types of things that everybody needs that way. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we can't survive without water. Everyone has to have water, and it needs to be good, clean water. I actually had looked into what's called primary water. I was talking to Yolanda about that before. There's primary water in California.
What does that mean, primary water?
It's kind of hard to explain, but down below the surface, if you can and think about where the plates are, like where plates rub together and these cracks, somehow it actually creates water down there. And that's called primary water. Now, this primary water is the purest because it's not above ground getting polluted, you see.
Mm-hmm.
Some other countries have primary water, and there has been proponents and, people who have stood up for this primary water and tried to help other countries that had no water source where they lived, like third world conditions, to actually able to, access primary water. I would love to drink some of this primary water. I would like to have some of it. I would like to taste it and see what it's like, because it would have to be ever so much cleaner and more pure than what we get here on the surface. But yeah, I actually did find a book on it. I can try to see if I can share that book with you somehow, Emily, because this book has been suppressed, and to even buy the book, it's over $200. It's like $230, $240 to buy this book, because there's very few limited copies of it because it was suppressed. I actually found a copy of it, a PDF copy of it, the other day, and I have it loaded on my phone, but I'll see if I can share that with you.
That'd be good.
I think that wherever we are, we need to start thinking about our natural resources, because these data centers are going to consume a lot of these natural resources. And I mean, I told you all before,
And
they're heavy.
People sick too. The clusters.
They're heavy into Oklahoma for the natural resources that are here, that they want to get their hands on. Google, especially. Told you their latest investment in Oklahoma was $9 billion with a B. Now I still need to track back to find out what their original investment was, but yeah, I mean, I just sit here and think in my mind, is Oklahoma going to become a dust bowl again, back from this time in history whenever it was a dust bowl here? Are they going to consume so much of our natural resources? What are we going to have left? And that would apply to any state in America anymore.
Where I live, we have already lost some ungodly amount of our topsoil, which is, Robert Kennedy was talking about regenerative agro, but talking and doing are two different things. And we don't have but a few small projects that are regenerative in any large scale nature, comparatively speaking to the big agro projects and companies and subsidies for regular farmers. And so we had a event in some states recently where it was almost dust bowl-ish, blowing all over the place. So I see that coming in the not too distant future.
Yeah, if we don't take care of the earth is not going to take care of us.
True. And it kind of ties into getting people to stop focusing on reality. That kind of ties into one of my probably my main pet topic, which would be cults. And I would also encourage everybody to go and read a couple of books. One is by Steve Hassan called Combating Cult Mind Control. And what's really fascinating about him, although he's kind of a, overpaid corporate guy, but I think he's a truth teller about his own experience. And he's also, his BITE model that he borrowed from Robert Lifton is really great. And what that stands for is behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control. And this book helped me quite a bit, because when I left a high pressure control group, I read through all that and I realized how all those things were being applied. And it's amazing once you realize things, how much you can do. It flips the way you feel about things. Instead of, feeling all the pain and disturbance about what the group and their beliefs is doing to you, you start to realize that they're working on you. And then you're like, oh, I have some control over this. I don't have to allow these things to intrude on my mind. And then you develop the techniques that you need in order to combat it when you see it. So, but he's very good at doing this and describing this and weaving it together in his book. He released a more up-to-date edition. But what was fascinating was he became a Moonie, and he was a very intelligent guy, and he was Jewish, and he was in college, and they recruited him. Well, that group is very anti-Semitic. So what's funny about it is that here he was, this Jew. So his family did like an intervention type thing with him. So they used all kinds of techniques, by the way, on the Moonies. They have them sleep deprived, working, not eating properly, and all those kinds of things. He actually had a very bad crash. He was driving a van doing some work for them or something, had a crash, ended up in the hospital. So his family was able to get a hold of him for just enough time to really work on him. And he realized he was brainwashed in a moment when he blurted out, they were saying something about, what about the Holocaust and what about this and that? And he said, I don't give a F-U-C-K about the Jews or Hitler or this or that. He said something positive about Hitler or something, and then he hurt himself, and he was like, whoa, even to him, this was kind of odd, and he realized, that little moment of maybe there is something wrong with this. And, now he would look back on that and just be like, oh my God, how was I ever that far gone for such a kooky group, but it happens. And so that's an excellent book. And another one would be The Mind Manipulators. That's an older one. It's a very large book, but it's got lots of examples of all kinds of things. And just being hyper aware of that. It's used in companies, these techniques on people, used on YouTube, used in media, and you'll recognize it when you see it. And do you have any good book recommendations or experience with things like that?
Most of the books I have are to do with spiritual knowledge, some history, and things like primary water. If you work on yourself spiritually, it helps you in many facets, in many ways, physically, mentally, every way.
Mm-hmm. So for you kind of take an alternative view of your spirituality. In your background, did you have like a mainline Christian view at one time, or?
No. I grew up in a house where my mother might have taken us to church one time a year, maybe twice a year. So, I guess I should be thankful that I wasn't brainwashed into any certain particular religious dogma. I guess I should be thankful that I had a mother who, now, having said that, my mother would say things that I figured out later actually came from the Bible. Don't count your chickens before they're hatched. There's some kind of verse in the Bible that's very similar to that. Mm-hmm. My mother would say things, and it's probably because that was her upbringing from her parents, and from the generations before. But, I never got to really know my grandparents because they died early on, and I didn't get to be around my grandparents or anything. So, no, I had no structure, a very unstructured upbringing. Let me put it that way.
Right. Yeah. For me, it was I had a little bit of all of the Abrahamic world. So I had, but I had a very free thinking household, and I wasn't restricted in what I looked at or, pushed into anything. I, went to a Baptist Sunday school, and then a Catholic school, and then an evangelical Lulu Megadome school. And I feel like the last one did the most damage in me thinking it looked almost like these people are performing. They're not, none of this is sincere. Whereas with the Catholics, because they give up so much, some of the, clergy, I had a much more of a reverential attitude towards them, and saw them as, well, obviously they're very dedicated, or they wouldn't, give up having a family or having any money to, be in the church. That was my mentality at the time. It would have been much harder to turn me on them than to turn me on the, screaming, raving, speaking in tongues psychos, for lack of a better way to put it. And that being said, even in that environment, some of those people were sincere and sweet people. It's not like everybody in these things is just a total monster. You're always going to find, I remember I had an English teacher in that school, and she was the sweetest person in the world, and she was as sincere as could be and believed it wholeheartedly,
Yeah. Remember I told you the other day, even a structured religion that we would think of as kind of dogmatic, people can still spiritually advance in that. It's not that they're all bad. I mean, I had someone who was supposed to be a Christian knocking on my door at 7 o'clock this morning to, you know, tell me what I shouldn't do. I was listening to the neighbor across the street, her son or something, her elderly old man, 60 something, I think he's 70, over 70 years old, come over here at 7 o'clock this morning knocking on my door. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I saw later that it's a full moon today. And I was like, okay, that explains it.
It does.
He just had to come over and say something to me and just get it off his chest. And then, you know, I didn't yell at him. I didn't do anything. I just tried to get through. I was on the phone. And I told him I'm on the phone. He's knocking on the door. I opened the door. Can I talk to you for a minute? Well, I'm on the phone. But he still wanted to, you know, unload on me anyway. So I was like,
oh, go ahead.
I thought about it afterwards, and I thought, I know this man is supposed to be a Christian, but that was one of the most unchristian things that a person could do.
Yep.
And I didn't appreciate it. And then, you know, I explained some things to him while he was standing in front of me, while I have the phone in my hand, you know, and the recording's going on, waiting for me to respond to it. And somehow I ended up getting disconnected during all this. But anyway, you know, I can't say I certainly didn't kiss his ass. I was like, you know, I'm not going to be polite. You're going to come over here and be like kind of talking to me in an aggressive manner. Then I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to yell at him, but I'm certainly not going to roll over and play dead. And then at the end of the conversation, he says, thank you. And he starts walking off. And I thought, I'm not saying you're welcome. I'm not saying another word to you. You can just leave.
Yeah. Good on you. Because it's funny because my elderly mom did something like that. She, and this was so funny. She told me what they said to her. Like, they came up to the fence or something and they said, excuse me, but we were wondering if you had and they said it real snippy, like, do you have somewhere to go on Easter Sunday or something or other? And she said, yeah. And then she didn't say anything else. And then they said, well, where? And she said, I'll be at home minding my own damn business. And then they said, well, we were going to invite you to our blah, 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 you know, and they handed her a pamphlet. And then she just looked at them and they walked away. So, you know, same sentiment, because the attitude that comes with some of these people, if there is a God in this universe, I don't believe that attitude is from God. It's become a business for them. And they're not very good at marketing either, because, you know, if you haughtily want to throw a product at someone, they usually are going to kind of recoil in horror from you. It would be better to, you know, insert some friendliness into the mix. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty rude of him today. I had taken out the trash. You know, I got up early and I actually had planned on being out in the yard, but I went to go take out the trash and I seen him come out across the street from the front door. And then he like sat down behind this railings, these side rails on the porch, and he was watching me. And I was like, well, I'm not going to work out in the yard with him over there, because I feel like he's watching me. And then sure enough, I came in the house and within about 15 or 20 minutes, he's knocking on the door telling me what I can and cannot do. And, you know, like, I'm like, you're just a little bit off. And I know it's sad to think, but every time things like this happen, I wonder if they took the shot in the arm.
Could be. The thing is, yeah, but like those people existed pre-jibbity jabs, but I get what you're saying. But yeah, I mean, it's so funny how they want to micromanage other people for the Lord, and yet their own behavior doesn't exactly line up with anything Jesus-y.
Oh no, this didn't have anything to do with religion per se. He just didn't want me to ask his mom for something. And it's a long story, but, you know, he's sitting there saying one thing. And I said, well, your mom told me something else, you know. So he's disputing his own mother. It was personal. It didn't have anything to do with religion, but But I know how, my neighbor is across the street. She's very Christianly. She goes to church all the time. Now, that's not to say I think she's perfect, because I've seen her drive by people on the streets that, those people that go out and they'll be at a stoplight and they'll have a sign holding up for money or whatever.
Yep.
And she has like absolutely no empathy for people like that. So I don't know, she's a nice person other than that. And she's helped me out a lot. She's just been a wonderful person. But, he just kept saying, well, I've known her for 71 years, because he's 71 years old. And he said, and then he was talking about that house, how she'd lived there, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, I've lived in this house for about 20 years. Thank you. I mean, he was just so condescending and hateful. I was
And
like,
that's another thing, you made me think of something interesting that ties it back to village life. Like, in America, some places in America are kind of like that. There's kind of an insular culture, and if you're not part of it, you're seen as an outsider. Other places, everybody's, from everywhere. Like a large metropolis like New York or something would be like that, and nobody thinks of it that way. Although they do kind of have a core group. I'm wrong about that, because even a place like that would have, like authentic New Yorkers versus all the tourists and whatnot. But, basically we are a place that views it as you could move from one state to another. And there's a little bit of that, but very little of it. But this throwback to the way back, like that they're doing in the Nordic countries, where they're going to have paper, pencils, and books again, and they're going to get rid of the devices in the classroom, and they're going to kind of go back to village life a little bit, and to doing things the hard way, so to speak. What's funny is we used to have things to teach people lessons like fairy tales, and this reminds me of the other day on this very show, D&W, and some folks were reading from old fairy tales. And they're pretty gruesome, like the Brothers Grimm were really gruesome, the original ones. And I remember seeing this a long time ago, the Cinderella one. A lot of these characters in these stories were their real parents doing things to them. Real sadistic abuse, and a lot of times there was a little bit of anti-Semitic connotations going on with some of the characters in the stories. And so they started whitewashing them and changing them. And so now what we have is, so now they'll say fairy tale like they're talking about something that's silly, like, oh, that's just a fairy tale. And in a way that robs Europeans of their heritage of having fairy tales as part of, fairy tales were how you pass lessons on to your children about different things. And of course, some were less horrible, but it's just funny how the very meaning of the word, for example, fairy tale, is changed to be the exact opposite of what it was originally,
Yeah, they've actually banned the students from being able to have a cell phone at schools here now in this state. Now,
Can you say that again? Say that again. I'm sorry. I was looking at the chat there.
They have banned the students in the schools here from being able to have a cell phone at school now.
Oh.
So, I mean, I can see a plus and a minus to that. I mean, it's good and bad. And, during COVID, I don't know what the directive was. I just know that something came out where the school could withhold your child from you when COVID came about. Some kind of policy, or I don't know if it was a law, but it was some kind of directive saying that they could actually withhold that child from the parents coming and getting it from the school, which I didn't agree with that at all. And I don't have children, in a school or anything, but I thought, now that's really overstepping it,
Oh, for
and
sure.
as far as fairy tale goes, all the fairy tales, those have very esoteric meanings in them. It's really esoteric type information. I don't know if people realize that, but
Right. Yeah, I think they don't. And, and there was also magic in Cinderella. Like, I know the lady that in the original story, it was like a elderly black woman, and she was in a shack, and Cinderella, she got her all cleaned up and fixed up. And the reason she was Cinderella, it was the ashes, the cinder from being in the stove all the time. She was covered in that, and yeah, they were pretty gruesome stories, but always filled with lessons. But the harshest of lessons. Um, and yeah, and then we retained the silly lessonless part, and then charted it out as Disney films. And that's another thing too, not teaching people reality, like Disney movies. For all the love of certain movies, I'm not saying people don't have artistic talent, and I think it's good to fill a child's mind with sweet things. That's a small window of time where you can enjoy your life without um, having to deal with certain things, obviously, that you'll know about later. You got plenty of time to learn about harsh realities. But, you know, animals, for example, Disney movies portray animals like they're people. And a child really doesn't grow up even knowing what a rabbit or a deer or a bear is. They see Berenstain Bears, and they see, Bambi, and they see, all these other, and then of course the more sadistic cartoons too, where Tom and Jerry and all that kind of stuff. It's just such unreality and silliness, and it's not even fun type of silliness. It's like silliness with the purpose of programming someone. Just to tell you the truth, it's like how can we make people kind of mean and stupid and navel gazery and fixated on themselves?
Yeah, those cartoons are something else. The cartoons from the older times, and I was telling Jeeps the other day, there's a cartoon. I don't know if you can pull it up and see it on YouTube, Emily, but it's called Sunshine. Just type in old Sunshine cartoon.
Okay.
And you'll see this. There's one that's actually been colorized, which is a better version than the black and white one. But I honestly think that one is about black goo.
Oh my.
Just my personal opinion. But yeah, watch that cartoon sometime. And it's a really old cartoon from like the 30s or 40s or something.
Yeah, it pulled up the Sunshine Makers 1935. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
I'll watch that.
But, yeah, some of these cartoons, I think they have hidden meanings in them too. And you know what Disney has inserted, like subliminal crap into the Disney animations, but yeah.
I saw some, they were showing some cells. Of course, this gets into, some people will think, oh, that's ridiculous, but it wasn't my movie, and I thought the person presented it pretty well. And it's hard to find. I'll see if I can find it sometime. But because the person that originally posted it took all that kind of stuff off their channel at one point, but it was someone else's film they were using. It was early Disney, and they had one about these little dogs, and it was like a little schoolhouse, but you could see clearly the like sexual connotation of having the bell on the schoolhouse was a penis that ejaculated after they were rubbing it, and kid you not. And then they had also some other overtones. At one point, the dog pound arrests one of them, and it looks like fellatio on this priestly figure. It was unbelievable what was in this little cartoon. And then you had another one with they did a lot of ones with this little girl. Her name was Virginia something or other. Adorable little girl in all these little movies they made, little black and white movies. But there's some very clear overturns in those as well. So they presented all of this very coherently. And also there's a theme in even 80s shows, but even more now, and going into the way back into this particular film I'm thinking of, where kids seemed like they were parentless. So you don't see like families. You see kids kind of, it's almost like they're complicit in their own abuse, I'd say, because it's like they're operating like little bitty adults in these shows and movies. Like I remember loving a show called Kids Incorporated, and it's not like it had anything terrible on it, but the kids like sang and danced in a nightclub. You never saw them with parents and doing things regular kids do, which is very attractive to a child because it's like, wow, I could have a band in my own nightclub. Cool, I don't need parents. That's how you think when you're a little kid. But this is kind of a way to get someone's mind on the idea of being a free agent and getting away from their family or whatever. And in a lot of shows, you see that. It's kind of a theme of like mini adults. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's part of the grooming is to take a child and try to make it into an adult, even though it's not an adult. That's part of that whole grooming process.
Absolutely. And so many times when these kids have been abused, and that includes in media, the adult will tell them, well, you're different. So I knew that you were different, and you wanted to do this, and you're not like these other kids, and they will convince them of that, that they did something to indicate to this person that they were different or complicit, which is so, so disgusting. And the psychology of someone who can work on a child like that, I mean, I look at people who are sick or mentally ill as, even though they're a danger to others, hating them is pointless. Although a certain amount of contempt is necessary to take the action needed to do something about them. But beyond that, like, hating them is pointless. And a lot of times they got that way because when they were a child, something happened to them. So it's sad, really. But that being said, you don't allow people to do that kind of harm and keep perpetuating this. So, but yeah, you look at these people and you think, and some of them have it down to just a science, a fine art. And that they've cultivated their craft of messing with the most vulnerable among us. And you think, and then some of them can put on, a front of being either religious or basically benign and benevolent. And to me, that mind FUCKs me very much, because I prefer for my evil people to be overtly evil, because at least that makes sense. But for you to be able to present yourself to the world as a caring and loving and normal human being, and then in reality you're doing something that's sick at the same time, most of us would not be able to live with ourselves. We have guilt over even normal stuff that we do where we weren't acting our best. But people that can live almost a double life and accept, like I've seen prosecutors, for example, and that they knew they were railroading someone dishonestly, and they are perfectly happy with themselves. They put on their fancy clothes, head to that courtroom, their noses in the air. They don't see themselves as absolute scum destroying someone's life, even if that person might be put to death. And I'm thinking of something in particular that I need to make a video on someday. So that is a thing about the mind that some people have the ability to do that baffles me. What do you think about that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, the people that do these crimes, I just can't help but think that, I mean, they have to be affected by some kind of negative entity. I mean,
could be.
If you ever, I'll try to find the Fritz Springmeier book on MK Ultra and see if I can also send you a link for that. The things that go on, the physical is always connected to the spiritual. They can't be separated. That one always affects the other. They're always intertwined and involved with each other, Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, it's like I have had my own anecdotal experiences. I won't deny that they are real. I just don't purport to know exactly what they are. But I'm in alignment with anything good that wants to do good in this world. And what's funny is my St. Jude, it's over here somewhere. Here it is. So this is something a friend gave me because I have kind of almost a St. Jude fetish. On the back it says "Ruega por nosotros," which means pray for us. So yeah, I had found a St. Jude at the bottom of a suitcase when my mom was really sick, and I wore it. Really, I didn't have that much hope that things would be all right, but then they were. So that kind of made me feel a big affinity for St. Jude, and I like Latin American stuff, so I have that. But I feel like you can get too dependent on symbolic stuff like that, so I almost think it broke for a reason. I felt weird taking it off, and I thought that's wrong. I don't need that to be safe or something, so it's okay not to wear that. So yeah, have you ever gotten attached to items like that and thought that maybe that was almost, dare I say, evil, to feel like you need an item to protect you?
Well, I know what you mean. I know what you're saying, and you don't want to feel like some kind of physical object is a factor in your safety and well-being. But I think that it all goes back to our intention, whatever intention that we have within us. I actually wear a piece of, I mentioned the Anastasia books earlier. I actually have a piece of a ringing cedar tree from Russia, because these ringing cedars, they're really pine trees, but they call them cedars over there. And when these trees get to about 500 years old, they start dying. And when they're dying, they make this ringing noise that people can actually hear.
Wow.
And, those trees are supposed to be kind of special. So there's a ringing cedar site, and there's several different ringing cedar sites where you can order like pine nut oil and things like that. But I actually do have a piece of one of those trees around my neck on a piece of cord, and it has actually a green stone in the center of it that they put in it. That's supposed to be like a healing stone.
I think that's beautiful. I mean, I think when it's like, for me, that was symbolic at the time, but I feel like, also, this is almost a funny story, but another time where I thought about not wearing that anymore, I was doing laundry, and I was wearing it, and I couldn't get the clothes to come out. They were stuck, so I yanked on them, and that thing's pretty big, and it whacked me in the mouth, cut my lip, and I thought, isn't that hilarious? My protective St. Jude is like, clobbering me over here. So, but I thought, oh, it's actually, I could use it to, attack somebody that attacked me if I needed to. I could, but so maybe it's protective in that way too, like a weapon. But I get the symbolic stuff. Like, for me, that is symbolic, if you're thinking about it the right way, of, to me, like lost causes. There is no such thing as a lost cause. I can do anything if I try. Like, that's what that means to me. And there's something that helps good people. Like, good people are never truly alone. I think of it like that. But if the actual item itself is like needed to be on me in order for me to be okay, that feels like dependency on something. So that's weird, So that's where, for me, the line is,
Yeah, I think it's okay if we just realize that, we have to be able to feel good about ourselves, period, without any kind of accessory, so to speak. But yeah, the ringing cedar thing, I read those books, and then I got online and found the actual site, and I ordered this, and you can't even get this kind that I have anymore. They don't even sell it anymore. But so I'm glad that I bought it whenever I did, and it wasn't even very expensive. But it was just the whole idea of these beautiful, beautiful trees. I would say that the redwoods in California are another kind of sacred tree that we should kind of cherish, because, I think there were even bigger trees than before that we had on Earth. I think we've all seen kind of evidence of that. But
when the planet was so overly oxygenated, everything was huge, I'm sure. No telling.
Yeah, some of the places you can just tell that looks like a petrified tree. It might look like rock, but if you look at the grain of it, it actually looks like a tree grain,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do have things, and I have a lot of crystals and stones. That's my name. My friend, her boyfriend is, he worked for the Cherokee. He's actually a bounty hunter for the Cherokee. And he's also a medicine man, a Cherokee medicine man, believe it or not. But he came in my house one day, and he saw all my crystals and stones that I've been collecting all these years. And he said, "You do know that you're a crystal shaman, don't you?" So that's how I got my name.
That's clever. I love that.
And yeah, he asked me, "You do know that?" And I said, "Well, I never really thought of it that way. But now that you kind of like put it out there, it is kind of true."
Yeah, and we all have our things. Like, this shirt is my Daniel Johnston t-shirt, the "Hi, how are you" one, and he was unique and interesting. A lot of his songs were not that great, and then others were just absolutely brilliant, and that's what happens when something's like raw and real and involves real passion and real talent, even from people who are a little bit weird or whatever. So I think some of these things we uniquely love are like that. And also, there are some books, you're talking about trees that talk about how trees actually, I don't want to say talk to each other because that's how they put it, but in a way they do. Of course, it's on a certain level, just like with the mushrooms and the fungi that do the same thing. But there's so much that we don't fully understand, and the imprints, like we talked about before, even about tangible nature, let alone, it makes things seem so mysterious that really probably all have an explanation if we just could get to the bottom of it. Like if we had Cougar Doomer brain with math, we could get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. I mean, with all the things going on in our world, I'm just thankful that we can even talk to each other. I told you before that the one blessed thing about COVID is it forced us to go outside our bubble and talk to people elsewhere, because we were all stuck, kind of isolated. But
Yep.
I'm thankful that it's not worse than it is right now. I mean, I'm just thankful that it could be worse. In other words,
yeah.
we should be thankful for everything we have.
That's what I'm kind of worried about also, is with the, they are hiring zoonotic illness specialists in a lot of major cities, and, whatever might be coming, like you are prepped where you are for, taking care of yourself. And we need communities of people that work together that are prepared for things, sad to say. And we know they have plans in place for how to even wrestle that out of their control too, which is scary. But all we can do is our best. And I do think also, with all the doom and gloom in the mix, it is important to enjoy life at the same time. So I'm about to open it up to everyone. And I would encourage people also, like DNW said, I'd love to see people share art and music. I know it takes a lot of brevity to sing online or to do anything. One good thing about doing things online, though, like my friend and I made ourselves to get ourselves to actually play our instruments, like each week learn a song and then you have to put it on YouTube no matter how not well you've learned it or whatever. So that's kind of fun. I thought I might show one of mine later, but I'm going to open it up to everybody. I think the link is pinned, but just in case, I'll go slap it in there again. And then I'll take a break when we get a good flow of people going too. So,
And Rich, see your comment about Joan E. going live tonight. I'll try to look for that later. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, he put a comment to me earlier in the chat, but I can't read every comment and then be on the panel and be paying attention. So I have to just like read them every once in a while. I can't have that up and be on the panel. It's too distracting.
Yeah, for sure it is. Like sometimes I'm listening to you, and then if I mentally cut off the last half of what you said, I'm like, oh gosh, I need to do some kind of follow-up here. But yeah, I'll present that while we wait for some folks to join. So everybody's welcome right now to join. Yeah, and then if you have anything you'd like to present also, Crystal, like art or anything else, but I'll find that video. So while I'm looking for that, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did send you some emails of things that I've made, but my son took most of the art that I made, and so I unfortunately didn't have pictures of what he took. And I haven't painted really since my father passed away, but I did send you some pictures of a few pieces of jewelry that I've made, but all that stuff's away, so I can't like readily go take pictures of stuff. But
yeah, no worries. But I'll just show this. Oh, go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
Hopefully I'll get painting again soon. And I'm sorry, you go ahead.
No, I'm just talking to myself about how I can't work my tech. You go ahead.
I just like to do creative things, which I haven't been able to do for quite a while. And now I'm working on trying to fix this 1 acre and clear it all and clean it up and put it back to the way it should be. So that's been.
You have like a permy garden type of situation going on there?
No, no, not at all. I'm trying to put the property back to the way it was before I became so ill in 2021, because other people have been mowing the yard and they've just been skipping humongous parts of the yard. So there's parts of the yard that had like trees growing up where there shouldn't be trees, and just it's really bad. So I'm down to my last big cluster part, which is a space about 40 feet long by about probably 20, 25 feet wide. And it was just solid mass of fallen trees and branches and grown up stuff. And I cut down something the other day that was 3 times taller than me. And then after I got it cut down, I'm using my little mini chainsaw. I found the perfect chainsaw, my size, little mini chainsaw. So I'm able to cut some of this stuff down with that little chainsaw. I cut this thing down and I'm looking up at it and I'm thinking, man, that's got to be at least like 16 feet tall or whatever. It's way taller than me. So I get it down and then I start looking at the leaves and I realize it's poison ivy.
Oh my God. Mm.
It's that tall, Emily. And now I kind of have it on my hands a little bit, but I figured out a good way to get rid of it. But I was like, oh man, that's really bad. Whenever the poison ivy is like 3 times taller than me, that's really bad, Emily. I mean, the stalk at the bottom was like 2 inches around.
No, that's scary. My lilac bushes get really out of control. Lilac is really interesting. That's the wood that the Pied Piper is supposed to have lured people off with, and it's very hard. If you trim them wrongly, you'll ruin the flowers. And the flowers they're only there for a very short time. The smell is amazing. It's like, because I hate chemical perfumes with a bloody passion, but I love natural stuff. And those are like the most perfect natural, to me, scent. And but it only lasts such a short time, because the first big windstorm you get, they're gone off the bushes. So that little window of time where they're there, and that's symbolic of a lot of things in life, But yeah, I thought I'll just play this of me playing the piano. What happens is, you just have a nothing channel, but then, like, because that show was coming on, it was Stranger Things. They must have put a Running Up That Hill version on it. So that made that go a little bit viral. Like, all of a sudden, like 100 and something people and 200 saw that video, and then it had an ad on it. And I'm not monetized, so I'm like, oh, we get to watch an ad for free, right? But so yeah, I'll just show that real quick. I'll take us both. Was that audio removed?
I could hear it.
Oh, good. Okay. Because it just said, hey, your audio was also removed. So, okay, that's good. Yeah. So, anybody that wants to come share music, poetry, or anything else, please do so. And yeah, because so far it's just the Crystal and Emily show. We don't even have any ladies besides ourselves. So, we would love to hear from ladies or gentlemen at this point about absolutely anything.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened. Where is Alyssa?
I know. And like Dirty Lowlife has music on his channel as well. He has some good, I think some of them are his own songs. But I don't want to play other people's songs without their permission. So if he came up, he could give us permission to play his music. So yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about the ladies who haven't been on. Alyssa,
Oh.
Verily, Verily, where are you? Why are you down in the chat and not up here with us?
Yeah, it should be fun. And she was great when she was on here before, so we'd love to hear from you. But I don't like to put too much pressure on people because I know how it is. Because sometimes I don't want to, come up. But
yeah, she's not one to come up. I don't know, but Yolanda may be helping out her parents because she said her father had surgery. So,
oh, that makes sense. Yes. Well, we'll have to keep this thing rolling until somebody wants to join. Let's see, what else could we talk about that's going on, because there's so much. And it's funny, you have things that happen all throughout the week on your mind, but on a channel like this, especially someone else's channel, I can't just slop videos into here from X or from YouTube. Otherwise, I could show some pretty interesting stuff. I just have to talk about it. So let me see if I can pivot to a topic. One thing is I saw where this child was rescued in Santa Cruz. It was a 16-year-old lifeguard. And he told the onlookers to save themselves. A lot of people were trying to run and help this little boy, and he was shooing them away. They did eventually save the little boy and get out of there. But it reminded me of another similar story where there was a boy who was being electrocuted. Like he was standing, they had a flood or something, like a bad storm, and there was a downed power line, and he was standing on it. And when people were coming to help him, he said, "Don't touch me, I'm being electrocuted." So to me, these people that in the moment of like their death or near death, they do think of others. I don't think that's unique just to the human animal. What do you think about like that selfless spirit type of thing, where you want to save the tribe rather than yourself?
well, that little boy obviously had a very old soul. But I've actually seen a video where a child was getting electrocuted and a man actually saved him. He ran up there and grabbed a hold of him and pulled him off. But of course he started getting electrocuted too, but he still saved the little boy. But I mean, I think in times of our lives we have these events that happen where we have to make these decisions. I mean, here's an example. My son was only about 2 months old, and my nephew had just been born as well. So I was in the car with my sister-in-law, and she was driving, and it was one of those old El Caminos, the old ones that are so collectible now. But I think my brother had it jacked up or something. So, when you're on wet pavement, it wasn't very sturdy and secure on the pavement. So we're going down the highway, and I was pretty young with this brand new baby, and back then they didn't make you have any kind of carrier or anything for your baby. But we were going to go get their pictures taken, and she started losing control of the car in the left lane, and this was part of that same highway with that big cement wall going down it. But this was way back when my son was a baby. So she started losing control of the car, and she had a hold of her baby in her left arm. She was just holding him while she was driving. So she panicked and she let go of the steering wheel.
Mm.
So we're going down the highway. The car goes into this spin. The car was literally spinning so fast, I couldn't see anything. Well, I had my son in my arms, and I took my son and I just dove down I put him up against me and just dove down into the floorboard, towards the floorboard, to try to keep anything from hitting him. Well, when I did that, my my elbow hit the gear shifter, and it actually knocked the gear shifter into neutral. And so when the car finally finished spinning, because that wall was brand new, they had just put up that wall, that cement wall going down the highway. So all this kind of a hill part going up to that wall was still just pure dirt with no grass or anything. So whenever I did that and it knocked the car into neutral, the car spun, and then went up to that kind of little bit of an embankment and literally stopped facing the right direction, but we were up against that wall. And I don't know how we kept from hitting that wall, but we didn't. And I was so upset, and I was so upset with her for letting go of the steering wheel, leaving us to having no control whatsoever of that car. I was so upset, and people were stopping on the side of the highway. And, I stepped out of the car into this 6 inches of mud and just started walking away from the car with my baby. It's like, I gave someone the phone number and said, please go call my husband, tell him that there's been something happen here. So he came and got us. But, there's times whenever you have to make a decision, and especially if it's your child, you're going to put that child ahead of yourself, I mean, you're going to protect your child with your own body, shield it with, and that's what I did. I literally shielded him with my own body.
Yep. I did that with a kid I worked with. There was this giant metal swing, in the occupational therapy room, who's the primary child I worked with who was autistic. And that thing was going to come down on him. And I ran and got on top of him, and it just walloped me in the head. But yeah, you'll have that instinct with a child for sure, which is why women who don't have that instinct with kids are very bizarre to me. And there seems to be more of them. And it's kind of, you saying all that tied into some different things that I was thinking about during the time that could be talked about. Like, Objective Ethics had his theory about that, about people's instincts being different, about having families and stuff. I don't think, I a little bit agree with him, but not entirely. I don't think that you'll ever take the instinct to have families out of people just because the world sucks and is bad. Although, like during the pandemic, I definitely had that thought of, wow, this is a terrible time to have to worry about what would happen to someone, So it does affect people, and so does economic situations that people are in when everything becomes so expensive. And when the world is so gross and dangerous. I mean, of course, people think about all those things, and it serves to curb their enthusiasm for creating life, which is probably part of why they want to make everybody so scared and miserable all the time. But I still think you can't fully squash that instinct out of people unless maybe you do it biologically, with no telling what we're being exposed to, like you and I are always talking about, in relation to chemicals and whatnot. But yeah, driving. Did you have anything to say about that before I pivot? Because the car story made me think about AI and transportation and stuff.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking, the AI car, the cars that drive themselves, that's not really AI, but self-driving vehicles. They say that they have fewer accidents than humans, but when they do have one, it's something really stupid. Like there's one that it hit a blind spot and it just ran into a wall and killed everybody in the car. So to me, like my biggest fear in a car is what other people will do, because I can control what I do and I can watch what I do, and I do. But you can't control what other people do. The only time I've ever had anything happen to me was one time I was on the highway and we all had to stop like you do, gridlock traffic, and the lady behind me just keeps going and waylays me, and pushes me a little bit into the car in front of me, but I swerved so I didn't hit him too badly, and then I swerved the other way so I wouldn't hit the wall. So actually, as she was hitting me, was steering away from it, and it turned out less terrible. But you can't control other people. I also hit a deer this last November, first time I've ever had something like that happen, and it's because it was so late at night and misty, and they were just standing in the road. And they say don't do this, and they're right. Like one person, when I was getting my car looked at, he said, just hit them. Don't ever do what you're going to get yourself killed. But I swerved to avoid them. And then I realized if I don't swerve back, I'm going to be rolling off this road. So I swerved the other way and did end up right at the end because he kept walking, and I ended up hitting him. But it wasn't such a bad hit because I had avoided hitting him. If I'd hit him head on, it would have been probably through the windshield. So that's kind of terrifying. You can't control what animals and other people are going to do. I don't know how a robotic vehicle would have handled that, but what do you think about robotic transportation, or do you think they'll even try to take our vehicles away from us and force us into mass transport?
Well, I do think that they're going to say there's not enough oil, not enough gas. You have to use an electric car. You have to live in a 15-minute city. I do think they do want to limit us to certain areas and just really tie us down to certain areas and not let us go beyond this 15-minute thing. I don't really know how we stop that. That's the problem. How do we stop this? I think wasn't it Cougar Doomer who was saying that he does think that oil is going to become less and less,
Yeah, it will. It will. And just think of like what we're really using it for, in these giant commercial airplanes to truck, Walmart crap from one end of the world to the other. What a worthless use of something,
Well, people have built cars that run on water. Of course, he was knocked off, Stanley Meyer. He invented the car that would run on water. You can Google his name. He was poisoned.
Oh, wow. I haven't ever looked into that.
Yeah, at a restaurant. There are inventions that are available. They have been created, but they're suppressed. Just like there's medical cures that have come through, but they're suppressed because the medical industry can't make any money off someone who's cured of a problem.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
I think
go ahead.
this
Sorry.
whole free energy, people have free energy inventions, and that's suppressed. So, I think so many things have been invented and created that we are not even aware of,
For sure. Yeah, and you made me think. I just got kind of excited about that topic for a moment because working in the medical malpractice industry is so. You can look at things from both sides. Everybody needs a doctor from time to time, and some of them, when I see what some of them go through, I'll say that some of them are good people, and some of them are very smart people, very hardworking people. For what they've been put through, they don't even get some of what I think they would deserve when they're good people. But it all involves a lot of trauma for the provider and for the people on the other end of it. And no doubt about it that they keep people sick. There's also kickbacks for doing certain types of treatments that really aren't the best thing to do to someone. Example being really trying to get diabetic people on dialysis or with this bag on them instead of something that would be better, because they actually get money if that person ends up getting that bag. They end up getting it's a 6-figure sum for how many people they can get to go ahead and get one of those. So that's another example of why you don't want to fuse the things that people need with money-making desires, because those two things don't go together. Healthcare should not be for profit exactly, but we should take care of doctors because nobody's going to work that hard for nothing. But the flip side is there shouldn't be this corporate influence in how we take care of human beings. When we're talking about life and death, it shouldn't be a thing where there's any you can make more money hurting them than helping them, kind of thing, which is the case in a lot of instances. And um, it's really sad, it's why a lot of times, and I've had situations where I'll hear one version of events there. I can't really talk about the ins and outs of things, but I'll hear one version of events that makes sense. Then I'll hear the other side, like happened yesterday at a deposition, and then at that point, you kind of come to your conclusions, and you're kind of flabbergasted. And I won't say which way it is, but you just think, these people kind of concocted something together, and it made sense until you heard the other side. So it just kind of floors me. And we are talking about life and death, but at the same time, healthcare providers are people too, and you can have a situation where they either just make a mistake, or where the circumstances are bad altogether. So it's just really a sad, gouging you system. They had me drafting a therapy dog policy for the cancer care center, for example, but there was so much red tape to get that going. You know, it's really hard to do something like that. That's really just a little beneficial thing. There are some things you need to do, though, obviously, to make it safe. Like I emphasize, we have to have something for the parents to sign off if we need to treat their child, if they're to get scratched or something. A lot of little ins and outs of things that they didn't want to have to do, that I'm like, you really do need to do this, and we did it. But that being said, it's probably harder to get the dogs there for the kids in the cancer care center than it is to pump somebody full of chemicals, some of which are maybe not the best treatment option. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe next time I'll tell you a story of how I got these colloidal silver machines that I have, and I still have them, but I'll save that for the next time. But Stanley Meyer had an actual physical car that ran on water. He built it himself. So, you can't, you'd almost have to invent something and not tell someone about your invention. Otherwise, you're a target. But, I see Kenny down there saying there is no free energy. Yes, I know energy is transformed from one thing to another, but if you look a little bit harder, Kenny, you're going to see some people out there who do have some free energy devices, and I'm sure there are patents for them. There's patents for everything. I found about 100 years worth of patents for geoengineering. People claim that there is no weather modification going on, but I found patents that go back to the early 1900s showing even nanotechnology in the air. So a person kind of has to just look for themselves, and don't take my word for anything. That's for sure. Research it yourself, but you have to look further than the the mainstream media headlines. You can't. We have to really dig for the truth.
A lot of people think the Hindenburg was, if I'm thinking correctly about, that's the giant air balloon thing. I mean, the Goodyear blimp is the same thing, but they think they kind of wanted that thing to burn up so that we would end up burning fossil fuels in the air. But I don't know.
Well, I live in an oil state. This state produces oil. That's one of the mainstays of this state that I'm in. And it has been for a long time, even though the claim is that there's getting to be less oil. I don't know the truth of that. Honestly, will we ever know the truth of some of these things, Emily? I don't know.
I know in Syria, the offshore exploration of that CGG Veritas, that became another company, but it's England, France, and the United States that were in collusion to go in there and do that. And, the offshore exploring in Gaza, which, there's some companies involved in that, and in Israel, actually. So, of course, these are motivators for a lot of things. Who controls those things will be the wealthiest people in the world. And Russia owes a lot of their wealth to providing energy due to the pipeline that they have that runs through Syria as well. They dominate that. So, yeah. I really am curious why nobody wants to join tonight, because it becomes a little bit difficult to like the more people you get. And then I'm glad we don't have alcoholics calling in wanting to like alcohol scream at us. But like, what's the deal? Everybody's just kind of hanging out and watching us.
I don't know.
They don't want to interact.
They're listening to what we're talking about.
Yeah. We have Andy. Thank you, Andy. You answered the call. How are you doing today, Andy?
Oh, I'm just living as it comes. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. So did you have
Crystal?
anything you particularly wanted to share?
Well, I shared it in the chat already. Hi, Crystal. Good to see you. I shared it in the chat already, but I feed some neighborhood cats around my house. And there's this pair of cats, a male and a female, that have been together for like maybe 3 or 4 years. They're kind of like exclusive to one another, and they've had several litters of kittens over the years. And the female got hit by a car yesterday, and the male is just wandering around meowing and, where have you gone? You know what I mean? He thinks she abandoned him. It's so sad to watch.
That's terrible. Yes, I'm sorry to hear that. Cougar Doomer, how are you doing? I enjoyed your presentation. I didn't get to listen to it properly until today.
Hi, Cougar.
Oh yeah, I'm great. Thank you for asking. I'm actually outside taking a little walk after my video just a little while ago that I just published. So if it's a little windy, I apologize for that. I can jump off. I'm doing great. There was a lot of talk just now in the chat about perpetual motion and free energy, and I just want to comment on that a little bit because, like every type of misconception or what do you want to call it, conspiracy theory, there's a basis of truth to this. So I want to clear that up because the actual reality, the basis of truth, is extremely interesting, and you don't have to go into UFOs and free energy. Just stick with the reality. So Nikola Tesla, who we all know and love, he was working with high frequency electricity, and he was a genuine mad scientist. He terrifies me, the things he was able to think of. But he came up with a way to distribute electricity without wires. Now that means that anybody with a suitable receiver could pull the electricity down from the sky. Now that looks like free energy because if there's no wires, there's no meter. Now they could have metered it. They still could have done that. And they still could have charged you for pulling it down from the sky. But the way he implemented it in his lab with his house, his neighbors, or how extensive it was just 2 antennas. And you could download free energy. Free from him, he would give it to you. And it was free of wires. It was not free of generation capacity. So it wasn't violating any of the laws of physics. And this is key. He had to create the electricity. He had to create the antennas. And then he had to transmit the electricity from his high-frequency generator to your antenna. Pull it down, you could use it. And this energy, we now call it microwaves. And microwaves are what we put in our oven to cook our food. Microwaves are also used to transmit electricity from point to point, exactly the way he demonstrated. There are plans on the books to put solar panels in space. And rather than having wires down to the planet, they were going to use a huge microwave transmitters and receivers on the ground and in the sky, in the space, to transmit the microwaves to the ground stations, and they could be distributed with wires and all the other things with meters and charged for it. But so it's not free; it has to have a generator, but it's free of wires. Now they didn't do that though, and Nikola Tesla was engaging in something that was unbelievably dangerous. And you already know what it is because we use the microwaves to cook food. That was discovered on accident. A radar engineer, from World War II, he was standing next to a transmitter, and the chocolate melted in his pocket. Okay, and then they discovered, shit, you can cook food. Now, when his chocolate was melting in his pocket, he was also being cooked. And the problem with all these wireless electricity transmission methods, which we now call free electricity, because that's kind of what it looks like, is they cook things. And they were cooking everything. And I think there was even a science fiction book I read when I was young about exactly the scheme, where the drama was they had to keep the antenna focused on the ground station. And part of the drama was something happened in space, and the microwave beam started wandering over the surface of the planet. And then you can imagine how bad this is. You're going to cook shit, okay? So these schemes are reckless to the dangerous to the point of being reckless, and they're not free. You can have wireless transmission, electricity. You can pull it out of the sky, but it's not free. It's just wireless. Our Wi-Fi is wireless. Our satellite transmissions are wireless. We still pay for them. Satellite phones are really expensive, but it's wireless. And all things with microwaves, by the way. So I just wanted to point that out. The kernel of truth, people always refer back to Tesla. Tesla discovered free energy. He didn't, but he did discover something. And we still use it to this day. And we don't use it the way he wanted to use it. Whatever reason he had for doing that. But we use it, and it's still not free. Your Wi-Fi isn't free. Your satellite phone isn't free. Nothing is free. You still have to pay for it. And it still has to be generated. It has to be transmitted. And if you transmit enough of it, you can cook shit like a candy bar in your pocket. I just want to point that out because I think that's kind of fun. And anytime I can take these conspiracies and put the kernel of truth in them, then I'm definitely going to do that.
Cougar,
Amen.
what was the name of that tower that Tesla built? Wycliffe or something like that? That big tower?
Yes, something like that. You're right. And that's where he was doing that. Transmitting microwaves.
Yeah. And see, that was supposed to make electricity not cost the people anything, right?
No, it wasn't. Because he still had to create the apparatus, and then he had to generate the electricity. All the wireless thing was transmission. You can transmit electricity, radio waves, microwaves, without wires. You can do that, but you still have to generate it. It's not free. You're not pulling it out of the sky. Someone is having to create it for you, and then you pull it out of the sky with the appropriate apparatus. But it's not free. It's not in the sky naturally. It has to be put there.
Well, I was under the impression that Tesla wanted to provide electricity to people free, and then that was the problem.
Okay, I know Emily, I understand what your impression is, and that's why I came on here. Okay, you can look up Tesla and what he was doing, and if you understand how microwaves work and high frequency microwaves, then you understand what he was doing, which I do. And so what he was doing is actually still done to this day. Your Wi-Fi is wireless, but you have to pay for it. I mean, there's ways they can make you pay for it. Now, if they wanted your wireless Wi-Fi to be free, they could do that. The government could do that. They could simply say, we're not going to charge for Wi-Fi. Everybody gets it for free. You just have to create an account, and we hook you up. Or you don't even have to create an account. There's just no passwords. Anybody can use it. If they could do that, it would be free of cost, but it's not free of technology. And it has to be generated, and there's electricity behind it. And where does the electricity come from? It can be solar panels, it can come from a wind farm, it can come from anything. But the electricity has to be generated to create the Wi-Fi signal that you use for free. And it's the same thing with Nikola Tesla's high-frequency microwave scheme to distribute electricity. He had to generate the electricity. And as a technologist, he knew how to do that. The people on the other end just thought it was magic. And so to this day, we think it's magic. Well, it wasn't. He built this huge fucking tower, put this huge generator behind it. He generated all this power on his own, and he put it up in the sky, and he gave it to people. Well, he can do that, and the government can do that. You're playing around with microwaves. Good luck with that. Your chocolate's going to melt in your pocket. Okay, but he did that. Oh, by the way, if people are freaking out about 5G, which is also microwaves, if we were putting up enough electricity into the atmosphere from central generating plants that you could actually download and run your food, that would be like 1 billion times more powerful than 5G. 5G doesn't run anything. It doesn't run your cell phone. It's just a low power transmission protocol, high frequency transmission protocol for data, including voice. But if we were just going to transmit AC electricity in the gigawatts, it melts the chocolate in everybody's pocket and probably cause their temperature to go up, their bodily temperature to go up. It would cook the trees. It would cook the birds in the trees. It would be the most horrific thing ever done. It would be like a weapon of mass destruction to run all the homes on all the AC in the atmosphere because of pushing microwaves into the atmosphere. Microwaves are what you have in your microwave oven, and they cook shit. And that's how that works.
I will look at Tesla more. I haven't really looked at Tesla in a long time. I do have some books on Tesla, but
and that's fine. And I like Tesla a lot. He's really a folk hero. But part of why he's a folk hero is that people don't understand what he was doing. And it's hard to understand what he is doing if, and let me be blunt, you don't have a degree in physics. Okay? He was a mad scientist. And he was playing games with the limits of physics. And you got to understand what he was doing. If you don't, what is it Isaac Asimov said? Any technology sufficiently advanced will appear to be magic. And so what Tesla was doing was so far advanced, it seems like magic, unless you've got a degree in physics, which I basically do. And so I understand what he was doing. And it was brilliant. It was also reckless. And we wouldn't be allowed to do it today because it would kill people by cooking them from the inside out. So, fine, interesting story. But it's not a conspiracy to hide his work. We use his work every day. There are radio frequencies, 5G included, all around you all the time. You pull it out of the sky without wires. And that was his work. We use it to this day. There's no conspiracy. But if you try to run your house on 5G, if you think you have a problem with 5G now, if you try to run your entire house, starting with your refrigerator, on 5G, it would kill you. And it wouldn't even take very long to do it. It would simply kill you outright.
yeah. Well, I wasn't saying if there was any conspiracy about Tesla. But, Kenny, stop relying on AI for information. I know that's what you're doing.
Which one has the bad back audio? Is that you, Cougar? Yeah, it must be Cougar's audio. Could you mute yourself?
I'm going to mute myself before I get home.
Okay, thanks. Okay, go ahead, Crystal.
Oh, I was just saying, Kenny, stop relying on AI for information. It's not always totally correct. And yes, I will look at the Tesla information more because like I said, I do have some Tesla books. Of course, I have Tesla books along with my other books.
I was going to ask Cougar because I remember back in the mid 2000s, like 2013, 14, I was really into reading Magda Havas and some of these people that, they were talking about different things to do with Wi-Fi and cell phones and whatnot. And it could be fear porn. It could be fear mongering, but they did mention that when they do these tests on the safety towards humans of these things, sometimes they don't test the same skull thickness. Everybody's not got the same skull thickness. Everybody's not got the same, in size. And so they test on a certain size and then they use that as the test for this is safe, but it might not be safe for a much younger child with a thinner skull and stuff like that. And she also did a lot of things talking about how, like, if you turn on your Wi-Fi inside of the car, you're creating a microwave and stuff. And they also showed videos of like sperm stopping moving as fast if the laptop was on the lap and things like that. And so I just kind of wonder, what say you, being an actual physicist? Because, I could see something like that as being truthful, and I could see where I don't know what I'm talking about, because I definitely, in fact, my brain, like I said, I know what I'm good at. It's not like I'm lacking intelligence. I'm like 131 IQ, but my processor when it comes to abstract math is very slow, and I know that about myself. So what say you about Magda Havas and people like that?
Well, I actually didn't understand that question. Is that an author, a book? What is that?
Oh, she does research, but it's like alternative type of research, not accepted by the
Okay,
mainstream on
that's
safety
fine.
of cell phones and
Yeah,
technology.
that's fine. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so without reading it, I really don't want to comment. But if
Yeah.
you're calling it alternative, if you're calling it alternative, I, I want to take a stand, and I want to um, be very emphatic about this. If you're doing alternative research, you may be working outside the laws of physics, and that's a dangerous place to be. Yeah, folk science works outside of everything: anatomy, medicine, common sense, and physics. Okay, so people believe all kinds of things, and by the way, people are motivated financially to write all kinds of things. And if you've got 6 books on Nikola Tesla that describe him as a martyr to capitalism, um, 6 people just made money. Okay, and they know that, and they can make more money selling a book that that has in the title, you know, Tesla was a martyr, than they can selling a book that says this is what Tesla really did. Because people don't want to hear that, and for one thing, it would be difficult. It's a lot easier to create a story around, well, this is really simple, but it was a conspiracy to destroy it. Then have to create another story about this is really complicated. He was doing mad science. He broke all the rules. He actually wrote some of the rules. And if you're going to do work in this area, then you have to be as mad a scientist as he was, and then you have to understand what rules he broke and how he broke them. And this is a lot of cognitive work that people have to do to operate at that level. Or they can simply say, well, he was a martyr. He was a martyr like everything else, like me. He was a martyr like me. I have ideas about perpetual motion, and I'm going to buy 6 books on Nikola Tesla because he was a martyr to capitalism, like I'm a martyr. No one wants my designs. They can't even get a patent. The patent office says we refuse to patent perpetual motion designs or free energy designs. Now, they patented all the Tesla stuff. By the way, stupid capitalism stole all his ideas, but they were usable ideas because they did not violate the laws of physics. They pushed the laws of physics. Tesla studied the laws of physics. He knew the laws of physics. He accepted those things. Faraday's equations, all of it. He had all of it, and he fucked around with it. He did wild, crazy things, and a lot of those wild, crazy things bore fruit, but not for him because he was ripped off by a bigger fish. Okay, and that's the martyrdom. He was ripped off by bigger fish. But he wasn't ripped off in that people hid his results. They stole his results, turned them into products, and never shared the either the profits or even the credit. He was a martyr to capitalism. He was a martyr to the Illuminati. There is a real story there, and it's a tragic story, and it's a story that a lot of inventors can identify with. But it's not a story of shadowy reptilian figures who are determined to whatever destroy our freedoms. It's a story of the regular story. This happened countless times of capitalism and connected people using their money and influence to destroy a competitor. That's what they did.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But a question for you also, and I love the way you wove that together with that. How does a layperson, of course, you're good at physics and that type of thinking, what would you recommend for a person who's an adult who thinks, I'd like to know things like cougar nose, for example, and so that I know if somebody's lying to me or not. Where do you start?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. And if there's any reason for me to be here, it is to say you can do this. Right now, I am. How old am I? 67 now. My wife knows. I'm 67 years old. I have multiple college degrees. I was a complete nerd. I read books about the work of Tesla, and it was all physics. Okay, and so I can have these conversations, but I want to say it doesn't take that. I have that, but it doesn't take that. That's not required. I think the first thing you have to do is just accept, as people like me do. I mean, maybe it's been hammered into my head. Maybe it's all propaganda, but you have to accept that there are laws of physics. And those laws are actually extremely interesting. Why can we not have perpetual motion? Why can we not have free as in beer? Well, we can have free as in beer. We just can't have free as in physics. Energy. We can't have energy that's free of physics. We can have energy that's free like beer can be free, meaning you don't pay for it. But we cannot have energy. And why is that? There's a reason for that. It's the laws of thermodynamics. And it's the laws of energy transformation, which can neither be created nor destroyed, but simply transformed from one form to another. And and mechanical energy can become electrical energy. And electrical energy can become magnetic because they're actually the same thing. And then magnetic energy can become mechanical again. Turn a wheel, and a wheel can grind your wheat, and then your wheat has been ground by electricity, which was not even going to do that for you. And all this is real. This is all real. And the reason why your wheat grinder has a motor in it is because it needs to transfer energy from electricity into mechanical motion. And you can learn all that. You can just learn all that. And the reason why you can't have the reason why you can't have a generator attached to a motor, and then the motor turns to the generator, and the reason why that doesn't work is because of heat loss in the system, either in the wires or in the armatures or in the actual physical motion of the mechanical mechanisms through air. And you can put it in a vacuum, and you can get rid of that type of vampire loss, but you're still going to have resistance in the wires. But you could use superconductors, and then you can do other things, but eventually it still stops because it just violates the laws of physics. And you can make it run further, and maybe every so often you come along and you kick it to get a little bit of energy to keep it going, but that's you. You had to do that. And so it's not free because you had to go eat a hamburger to be able to come back and put some energy into your free energy system. And then if you ever hooked anything up to your free energy system, like an electric toothbrush or something, it would slow down and stop. And so these are fascinating things, and it's really useful to just understand the basics of how the world works. And there are lots of people like Professor Dave Explains, Mini Minuteman, there's a couple of others, Hank Green. I'm just looking at YouTube influencers, okay? And they popularize science and technology. Now, I could do that. I don't do that. I don't have the time. And frankly, I'm not interested. But there's lots of other people who are interested in having that conversation with you. But you have to go into it understanding that there are limits. And the limits are both practical, unavoidable, and extremely interesting in their own right. And if we don't understand the limits, including of civilization and society, we're going to have a bad time. We need to live within the limits. And there's not going to be any free energy. We're not going to liberate Tesla's patents. We're not going to find alien technology in Area 51. There's not going to be anything to save us except ourselves. And of course, you know where I'm going with that. A civilization collapse due to global heating. And I just have to slip that in there, okay? And the reason I have to slip that in there is because I know all these other things. And I'm scared, okay? I'm scared. And we need to get behind this. So keep an open mind. It sounds like you have an open mind. Keep an open mind. That's what everyone says. Well, keep an open mind. Maybe Tesla had perpetual, energy, free energy, or perpetual motion, or whatever. Okay, not that kind of a free mind. Be open to the reality of the universe. Just be open to it. And when it speaks to you and it says there are limits, take that, internalize that, and say, okay, what can we do within the limits? Within the limits, what can we do? And the limits then become fascinating. The limits become a puzzle. And if you can't distribute electricity through wires without 40% loss, which is about what happens, then how can you have electricity closer to home? Well, okay, that's a limit. You have to beat that. Okay, I can have solar panels. Maybe I have solar panels in my neighborhood. Maybe I have a community battery. There are ways to solve these limitation problems and to make the world a better place and to make your energy infrastructure more reliable so that you won't be left without. But that's a puzzle. We have to solve that puzzle. It's a real puzzle, and there are lives at stake. So please do go out there, but don't start with your conspiracy books on Tesla because those make you think that it's hopeless and there's no way we can outplay the reptilians. You don't have to outplay the reptilians. You have to work within the limits of the laws of the universe, and that is an interesting challenge. And I hope we accept the challenge.
I do too. I appreciate that. Wow. Andy, you were an electrician for 4 years. That's what my dad was. And that's another thing that makes it so pathetic how little I understand and little talent I have for such matters.
I have little talent myself. A lot of what I did was kind of like repetitious, so I didn't learn a ton about electricity. I mean, I know how to like wire up motors and variable frequency drives and stuff. It was kind of a specialized type of electrical work, actually. It was for like machine tool systems, so like robotic systems. Like there would be like, say, a robotic system inside of a factory that would build, I don't know, the body of a car or something, or install the windshield on a car, like for an assembly line. And so I would wire up the entire system, like the entire robotics assembly line. So it was not like a typical household electrician or like a line worker. It was kind of a weird type of electrical work.
That's interesting. My dad wired switchboard panels, and here's an interesting story. So he worked for a company that that ship, it kind of ties into Cougar's thing, because he worked on the ship that ended up, the Valdez, that ended up crashing and spilling all that oil in the 80s. I remember him coming home when I was a kid, because he would go on these work trips where they would wire up things. And I remember him coming home saying that captain was drunk and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the whole trip was awful. And then the next thing, when we saw that on the news, they said the Valdez, and we knew that was the one that he'd been on. And yeah, and then we could also pivot that same story into how companies mistreat workers, but because you know, these large companies like the one he worked for, that he got laid off, and then he ended up working for a large German company, and so much nefarious stuff you could talk about in relation to that. But yeah, we are in a polycrisis, as Cougar Doomer says. I love using that term now. Not that I love that we're in one, but it fits, and people do kind of understand what you mean when you say that. You know, each thing bleeds into the next, creating kind of the whole web of problems.
Did you say you were a kid in the 80s?
Yeah.
I thought, that's crazy. That's insane. I thought you were younger than me.
No, when you said
You look really young.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. The thing is like I don't tell I would normally tell where I live and my age, because I don't care about people knowing that, but the court case is why I don't. So, but like, I'm Gen X, I'll just put it that way. So yeah,
Nice.
I can put your shade under that. Yeah.
I have a question.
Let's hear it.
Has anyone up here or in the chat ever heard of WBAN? WBAN.
I have heard of it, but I don't know what it means. I've only just heard the acronym.
I haven't heard it.
Emily, you will find it in medical information. It's called WBAN. And Cougar was mentioning the microwaves and such earlier. It just made me think of that, WBAN. So that's probably something we should look at sometime. I know a person who has done a lot of research on the WBAN, but I literally was able to pull it up, and I think information came up on the NIH website, you know, National Institute of Health. And it's in reference to using it to monitor people medically. However, it could monitor you literally, period, you know.
Wow. Well, I don't like that, but everything like that is, you know, an excuse to, like, for example, your kid having a phone all the time, or even having a chip in them would be, you know, we can find them. But my dog actually dug the microchip out of his own ear. That's how much he didn't want that in his ear. I don't know. What say you, Cougar, about microchips causing cancer in humans? Do you naysay on those things as well? Are we wrongly believing things like that?
Well, if you're talking about these embedded chips, that, as you say, the example for pet finding, well, not even pet finding, it's pet identification. These are what they call RFID chips. They're completely passive. They don't have a power supply, and they don't radiate any signal. They're just passive. They sit in you. Again, you may not like it. You may be allergic to it, and your dog dug it out, and that's a signal to you not to do that again. But they're not doing anything. And until somebody comes along with and this goes back to our previous discussion, an energy source that uses wireless high-frequency energy to pump energy into the RFID chip, it doesn't operate. This is wireless energy. This is Tesla, okay? But the chip itself has none. It has no battery. It has nothing. And until you get the energy source close to it, it has no energy in it. But when you do get the energy source close to it, the wireless energy, the energy, it then surges into the chip, and the chip has enough circuitry, which is that little bit of energy you just provided wirelessly, to send out a signal. And the signal is a very short, encoded digital string that says a string of numbers, some sort of ID. And the ID can be read. And then the ID, once it's read by the same device, I mean, it's the same device provides the energy for the chip to operate, but it also provides a receiver to pick up the signal. And it has to be really close. These are very, very tiny signals and very, very tiny amounts of electricity wirelessly transmitted, as Tesla would have done. Okay, but then of course it has to go look this up on a database, looks up the ID, and these IDs can do anything. It's similar to like AirTags, although I think AirTags actually have a battery in them, a little lithium cell in them. But it's the same idea. That it can contain an ID that doesn't have any power until you get near it with a reader. And that's also the security angle of it. You can't read these things until you get near them with an appropriate reader that's actually able to communicate with the chip. Now, do the chips cause cancer? I don't know. What are they made of? Is the material cancerous? Do they contain cancerous elements that can leak into your body? Maybe. I don't know how they're manufactured. But they are not themselves sources of radio frequency until they get really close. And then the radio frequency emitted is minute. It's a tiny fraction of what comes out of your phone all the time when you're using it. When you're connected to a cell tower, just a quarter mile away. The RFID chips transmit over distances of a few feet. And only when there is a device nearby that can wirelessly provide the electricity, as Tesla would have done using microwaves. So that's like the background of that whole thing. And I'm not sure what the question is, but that's how that works. And if any part of it is carcinogenic, maybe the chip itself, the way it's manufactured, maybe the way it was installed, but that's about the limit of it. You can have the chip, and if no one ever reads it, it never even functions, it never even does anything. It just sits there like a sliver that you got while painting a door, and it just sits there and your body does nothing.
Yeah, I think it would be more the probably materials themselves or something coated over the materials themselves, more than obviously the radio frequency type of thing. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it is. And of course, that goes back to manufacturing and people cutting corners, or not enough research being done, or people being different. Women have slightly different biochemistry than men. Women tend to be more allergic to the metal nickel than men are, and so if you're not testing properly, you don't know how the pharmacology of your metals work. You may turn out things that are crap. And this does happen, by the way. Sometimes people will buy medical implants from like China or Taiwan, and they'll implant them and they'll say, "Oh, this is fine, a little bit cheaper than what we get in the U.S." And then they find out the materials were not tested. It was the wrong kind of stainless steel. It wasn't milled correctly. It was milled with the wrong tool, left residuals on it. And you just take it out of a hermetically sealed bag and you install it in the patient, and you don't know that you're installing basically a time bomb because it was cheaply made. And so that's always a problem. Cheaply made out of material that haven't been tested or maybe even aren't even approved for the application. That happens all the time.
Yep, for sure. I had read about those people that had the mesh, things in their arteries, the stents, that's what they were. And then they were coated with something to make sure they didn't corrode. And then people, because of that, would have allergic reactions. So, yeah, that makes absolute sense why that would be more the problem than some of these other fear mongers kind of making us feel like we're being radiated to death.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I have to say this. I think I maybe said this in my presentation yesterday or some other time. The world is complex, and this has been demonstrated by psychoanalysis. I mean, who gives a shit? The world is complex. We all know that. You know that. I know that. We can sit together at the bar and cry over our beers that the world is too complex and we can't cope and we can't manage. But it is. And what happens to people when the world becomes really complex is they start to cope. And some of the cope is, I don't believe it, or I don't have enough information to understand this. And so someone comes along and they say something comforting like, yeah, your lack of information is not your fault. There's a conspiracy. There's a cover up. It's worse than you know. And staying away from it is the best thing you can do. And just, don't believe it and don't buy a new cell phone. And try to cancel the 5G towers and do all the, and don't have amalgam in your teeth, and don't have fluoride in your water, and don't have fluoride in your toothpaste. And all these other things, and maybe there's a kernel of truth to some of it. And then some of it is it's just too complex, and we don't know what to do. And I am completely 100% sympathetic to that. It is as it is, and I really worry for people that the world is only getting more complex. It really is, and we need clarity, and we're not getting it. And this is not going to end well. It just can't.
Yeah, and
Hey, really quick, I have to jump off here. It was nice talking to you guys. I'll see you guys another time. Take care.
have a good one. Bye bye.
Yeah, sure. Have a good one.
So, Signal 66, what's going on?
Yo, what's up? What you guys talking about? Free energy?
At one point we were. Did you have any thoughts on that?
What's like? I mean, like, I'm not like I don't have a crazy knowledge in physics, but my understanding is that free energy is impossible because of the law of conservation of energy. Energy is not created or destroyed; it's only transferred, like kinetic to potential, chemical, etc. But that's like fifth grade science. I don't know what are the developments in free energy.
I'm a literal tard when it comes to this, so I'm going to take your word for it on that. We had a long discussion, though. I got to do a deep dive before I'd be confident and talk about that. Hi, Crystal. I saw you kind of fade off there a minute.
I mean, that's like fifth grade science. I remember.
So 300 GLO 300 glow. I haven't seen you before. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I enjoyed a can of beer, so that's why I'm like, woo. But I'm not gonna overdo it. I'm gonna go to the pet store right now because I gotta buy my wife, another filter for turtle tank.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I'm gonna stream it. So I'm gonna stream it on my channel. It's gonna
Okay.
be dope.
Well, we'll check that
How
out.
you doing today, Krista? My bad. I'm sorry.
Oh, hi. I'm fine. Thank you so much. How are you?
I think I just answered that, right?
Hey, Andy, you rejoined. Did you want to tell us something?
No, I
Thank
was
you.
wrong about the time. My engagement is actually an hour from now, so it was just a mistake. My bad.
What are you guys doing?
Thank you, Andy, for coming back.
You're welcome. I missed you guys and girls.
Yo, what's
We
up,
missed-
Cougar? This is that old guy I was talking to the other day. My bad. What's up, Shaman? I've never spoken to you before, or Bandrea.
That's Andy. But you talked to Crystal the other day. Remember?
Oh shit, I forgot. My bad.
No worries.
I remember talking to this guy. His name's Doomer. That was an interesting conversation.
He is a smart dude, and he did. I don't know if you saw it the other day, but he did his own show on here. It was yesterday. He did a stream where the first part is just him presenting his own information, and then people could join and talk about it. So I encourage you to check that out. It's really good. So I'm like fading on what to talk about, and
All right, I have something to talk about.
Please, that would be wonderful.
So, what is it like your best treat you like to have when you cook in your kitchen, if you have a kitchen? I'm asking you, Emily.
My favorite treat, or just food in general?
Like whatever. Like you got. Oh, I'm gonna get myself something. What you do?
Okay. I love Mexican food, and I love Italian food, and then I kind of love plain food too sometimes. But like my go-to thing would probably be I probably eat Mexican or Asian food 2 or 3 days a week. So I like stir fries with like beef and broccoli and noodles and stuff. And
Have you
I
ever
love it.
taste vergasada and pitomate?
No, what is that?
Oh, you should try it. It's just fire in a taco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I like and I like the way the Colombians make their enchiladas totally differently. Like they really make these really really good enchiladas.
Yeah, the enchiladas is where it's at too.
Yes,
Mm.
love those.
There's this like there's this bread they make with a cream cheese in it and a jalapeno in it. That's just
Mm,
fire. That's
nice.
fire.
So, what's your favorite thing?
I can introduce you to more foods if you want me to cook for you one day.
Do you cook on your channel?
Um yeah, I actually do cook on my channel.
Nice. I love to watch cooking channels,
Yeah.
and I love to watch. You can learn so much, especially the Mexican cooking channels with the ladies that make their own tortillas. I tried to do that. I am horrible
You
at
should
it.
get some pitomate sauce on it. That shit's fire.
Okay.
Alright?
Okay.
You know
Yeah.
how to say it when you go to the grocery store? How you gonna ask for it?
Pitomate. Is that what you said?
There you go.
Okay.
No, it's you have to say that it's a weird way to say the J. You say he, like
Oh,
he.
yeah,
You say
he.
he tomate.
Jitomate. Okay.
Yeah.
I do
Perfect,
speak-
perfect.
Mi español es muy malo.
He
Hablamos.
tomate,
Wow, I
he
like-
tomate sauce fire.
Eso me gusta, Emily.
Encantada.
Pito
Emily,
is
Emily, estás bien
penis.
bonita, Emily. Cállate, güey.
For
Estás bien bonita,
for future reference, for future reference, pito is penis.
Oh, okay. What did I
That's-
actually say? Something terrible?
What do you mean, bro?
Yeah, you said a
It's
sauce of
jitoma with an
penis.
H. It's
Okay.
With an H.
That's what he said.
Let's pivot back
That's
to
not the
food.
right word.
Let's pivot back to food. I just won't. I won't repeat
Everybody
any
relax.
other words. given
She's
to me that I
sweating.
don't
She's
know.
already turning red.
Yeah, I would be
Relax.
cautious
She's
about
thirsty.
that.
Yes, when drunk folks
thirsty
come up
too.
and tell you to say things in other languages, you probably shouldn't follow suit. Lesson number 1 for Emily, who should know better by now.
You snitch ass nigga, bitch.
Hey, I'm gonna remove you if you do that kind of stuff. Yeah. Talk about nice things like food, electricity,
Man.
how we're all gonna die from the Wi-Fi, things like that. Nice topics.
Yo, how long would it take for you to die if you didn't have Wi-Fi?
How long would it take me to die?
7 minutes.
Wi-Fi withdrawal? Is that a thing?
I'm gonna start starting fires everywhere, like doing bad shit.
We're done with you. Bye-bye. Have a good night. Go do that bad shit. All right.
He's a bad boy.
Yeah, he's a little bit too bad. I think he's had more than one. But anyway.
Man,
Sorry, DNW, if I was saying horrible things. I wasn't aware. I was tricked. So
Penis sauce.
yeah. I'm kind of running out of steam here a little bit, unlike other nights. I saw Joe around, but I think he can't join until a bit later. But I'm fine with keeping it going as long as we can keep a flow of things to talk about. So yeah. Who has something? My brain is fried.
Signal. Help us out.
Help us. Do you
I mean,
sing?
I'm thinking about. Sorry.
Do you sing?
Oh God, no. The conversation that was going on with Doomer the other day was interesting, although I feel like we hit a kind of a deadlock because I don't know if you recall the conversation, but it was interesting.
Cooker, do you recall what you guys were talking about?
I don't know if he's there.
Yeah, I am here. I'm muted because, short explanation, I'm out in the front yard watering, and there's traffic on the street. So I will answer quickly. I was talking about the rise of AI, and that I think the basis of AI, artificial intelligence, is language. And I'm not the only one to think that. And I go back even further, that the basis of language is something that I call the word. The
So
word.
you're speaking in abstract. This I think this is the thing that I wanted to discuss. You're speaking in very abstract terminology. You're in a sort of philosophical context. AI is a technical subject. It's not a philosophical subject. It's a technical subject. It's computers.
Okay, then let me
That's
explain something to you. Yeah, I've been doing this a while. Artificial intelligence, as we are currently
artificial
building
intelligence
models.
hasn't been around for a long time. I understand.
Artificial-
I understand if you worked. I understand if you worked as a programmer or a computer scientist or developer or something like that. I understand if you did that for 20, 30, 40 years. That's the whole thing about AI. I don't know if he's still listening or something.
No,
Yo,
That's
this
the whole.
guy-
That's
this
the whole
guy's
thing about the
no,
AI.
He's a piece of shit.
That's
He's
the
gonna
whole thing
form
about
bomb you.
AI is that AI is shaking
guy's
up the
gonna
try
entire
and form bomb
atmosphere
you.
for.
hang on Signal a minute. Hi, Aldi. Let's not
Hey,
cuss him.
how you doing,
I mean,
But
I was talking kindly.
This
I know,
guy's
This guy's
Signal,
gonna
he's
enter.
try and porn
I'm
bomb
telling
you.
you to stop.
All right then.
He's gonna try and porn bomb you. That guy's a loser.
Well, let's not do that, okay? I mean, I gave him a chance, and obviously I had to
Yeah.
keep the other guy. And then I
Good
was
to see
getting
you,
ready to-
Emily. I hope you've been having a good day.
Pretty good. How about you?
I mean, I'm always having a good day, you know what I mean? But even a greater day when I'm blessed to be around you, girl. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that. So how is your day going, and what would you like to talk about?
Oh, well, it's been like super hot lately. I live in Southern California, the greatest place on earth. But it's been crazy hot. I'm moving soon, and I'm joining a RV tour soon. I'm probably going to be exploring the countryside for a while, honestly. It's going to be, I'm really excited, making money, having fun. I was on there for a while, and then I broke my foot, but now my foot is back, and it's I'm healed. I'm blessed. You know what I mean? What you up to?
We're doing this right here. I do paralegal work, and we've been talking about a lot of different things. I don't know if you're what things are your pet topics to talk about, but we've been talking about a lot of AI related things, a lot of things related to the safety of our water and our food supply, and how the data centers are affecting all that kind of stuff. We have, and also our cultural changes that we're experiencing due to that too.
Well, with AI, I'll tell you this. With AI, there's definitely going to be new laws introduced because of how crazy AI is getting. And with the water situation, I don't trust tap water, even though people say that it's clean. I have a dog, and I give him water bottles. I give him I give him fresh water all the time, because if I'm not gonna drink the tap water, why should I feed it to my dog? You know what I mean?
And bathing in it, where I live, there is we get these water reports, and they're not that great. And my neighbor knows a lot about that, and he's always complaining at City Hall about it. But yeah, people don't think about how drinking it is one thing, but we are bathing in it. So he actually bathes in water that he brings in. So I've got a filter on my shower, but yeah, it's pretty scary and so unnecessary at this point. You know what I mean? This should be in a first world situation. This should be our top priority. We could have extremely clean water, but no, we have to make microchips for video game devices and put the cleanest water on Earth into making those microchips. You know what I mean? Such a backwards way of thinking.
And with how California is right now, I'm not sure if you've heard about it, but we are like running out of water. I mean, I'm moving like early August, like probably like next week, 2 weeks. But the way that my house is right now, the people that were living here, because I rent, the people that were living here before, they would put oil and stuff down the drain to fuck up the pipes.
Wow.
So my whole shower is pretty fucked up. Like I only take like probably like I'll get in, get out as fast as possible. But I do understand what you're saying. Like, if it's not safe to drink, bathing in it, like, what's the effects on it on your skin, your pores, especially if you're taking a hot shower and it's opening up your pores. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if it's getting into your skin's an organ. And if you're breathing things, also a lot of people don't realize, like if you're breathing if you can smell it, it's getting in your bloodstream, basically. So like all these and that's what I barely touched on earlier, just in a comment I made, but like chemical perfumes, some of these weird air freshener things. Where I work in the hospital, they have a lot of obviously they have to disinfect and clean, but there's so many chemicals involved in that. And then they put scented stuff to like mask the smell of the chemicals. So then you got that going on. And sometimes I just got to get out of there. It's like you're in a chemical soup, you know what I mean? And you can feel like as a human organism, this is not good for you,
Yeah, 100%. I think like too, like gloves, wearing gloves for so long as well. Like I'm sure you felt it. Your hands get sweaty. Like also even that. Sweat on your hands and getting in and out of that.
Well, I don't do nurse work. I'm in the legal department, but yeah, definitely, I'm sure they feel that. Hey, Crystal, did you want to say something to Aldi?
Oh no, my device acted up for a minute and it wasn't working right, so I just went ahead and exited and came back in. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No worries.
What kind of paralegal work do you do?
I do MedMal, so it's a healthcare org, like a nonprofit healthcare org, and then I'm the only legal person there. It's covers a chunk of our state and then part of another one, and so yeah, we have one person that's over contracts, but I'm the MedMal.
What do you think about like how the White House they released the truths about COVID and how Dr. Fauci is getting pressured?
Yep,
today?
I knew you were a smart guy. So, 111 pleading the fifths today.
Yeah, I was reading that earlier. It's fucking crazy, isn't it?
Totally. And some of those questions were like a straightforward answer. Did you ever falsify documents? The answer would be no. If you never did, it would be very simple.
They were asking him too, like, what color is your tie? And like, he was like, I plead the fifth. Like, he was just being like super weird.
And he's got complete presidential immunity. So they're fixing to have a hearing on whether or not, he even could plead the fifth on some of those questions, or he's in contempt. So that'll be interesting. But they made a funny thing on the Babylon Bee or whatever, the spoof newspaper. It said, man whose grandma was locked up and kept from seeing her family before she died, painful death. Very happy that Fauci given stern talking to.
That's I literally, because I stream too, and that's literally like what I was when we were watching these videos. That's literally what I said is like the people that I feel the worst for and feel baddest for is like the people whose like elderly like grandparents died or their mothers died, and you couldn't even go into the hospital room and give them a formal goodbye. That you weren't even allowed to do that, or even give them a proper funeral, open casket. None of that.
Here's what was weird.
So messed up.
Yep. When my mom got sick with unrelated to COVID, she had kidney issues. But I was, you would have to stand in a line wearing your mask and be temperatured and everything before you could even get up there. They also changed the visiting hours, so you couldn't get in there early enough to even see the doctor sometimes. And then they kicked you out at like 7 or 8. It was really awful, like Gestapo. But then I actually had the illness in 2022, and they let me run all over that hospital. They let me go see her before I left. They told me they didn't care if I was wearing a mask or not. So it was very funny to see that change in attitude. And you could say it's because there was a lesser strain and they weren't as worried about people getting sick. But I thought that was funny. It's like you went from acting like the Gestapo about masks and temperatures to now I'm ill and I want to go say goodbye to her before I leave. And you're like, fine, go on ahead. So yeah, very strange.
Well, I'm sorry you had to go through that. That's crazy.
Appreciate it.
Did you ever take the jab?
Nope.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm highly allergic to regular things, let alone injecting a chemical into my blood. Even if
medications.
Even if it were something that didn't have as many. There have been. Well, I don't want to. This is somebody else's channel, so I'll just say a generic comment is that we know that it's been said that a certain jab has created more injuries than all the others put together. So that kind of shows you the risk there for people that are already sensitive to reacting to things, I would think.
Yeah, I never took it. None of my brothers took it. My mom took one of them, and we were telling her, just don't take it. But she was just She's one of those people that loves listening to the news and she's scared and ended up taking one. But thank God nothing's really like bad with her. She's still going, still pushing it. But
My super elderly neighbor had it, and she's all right too. So glad to see that as well.
I remember getting sick in January 2020 before COVID was even announced, and it was the sickest I've been. But once I beat it, I didn't get it anymore.
That's good.
So I feel like I got it before anybody else got it, and then like my immune system just built up a tolerance.
The same exact thing happened to me, Aldi. Right as it broke out, I got extremely sick, just like you were saying, like the sickest I've ever been in my life, and then I never caught it after that.
It was like before. It was like before it was even announced, right? It was like January 2020 or like late 2019. Like I was just sick as hell for like 2 weeks, like sickest I've ever been. And then after that, like, yeah, I didn't really get sick anymore. It was crazy. Yeah, that's crazy, Andy. I've heard a lot of people say that too. Like when I tell people that, a lot of people have said the same thing. Wow. That's crazy.
I'm going to find a song here and make y'all listen to me play the piano, since I have no idea what to pivot to talk about.
Let's hear it.
What do you mean? You don't have anything to talk about? You need like topics? What do you like to talk about? History? You like to talk about just paralegal stuff? What do you think about like that the Noah Wells guy?
Who's that?
Well, he's like the African American kid that went out voting with his 5 white friends, and people are like saying like he ended up like passing away, like washed up shore, and there's like a bunch of like conspiracies and controversies. Like people are saying that the 5 white friends had something to do with it. Like it's all whole racial tension, and like he ended up getting.
Yeah, I'd have to read up on that before I could.
Yeah, you should definitely read up on that one. The David case also, you should look up that with like the artist David. I never really like heard his music, but I guess he was having a relationship with like a 13-year-old girl, and he ended up like dismembering her and
fucking
like
gruesome.
It's like really bad. Like
it's terrible.
They're about to give him like a trial, and he could be like a death penalty, eligible for the death penalty in California, which is rare. Death penalty in California is really rare.
Yeah. I hope they kill him.
See, let me look that up because I
2006 is the last time they did the death penalty in California. So 20 years ago.
Oh damn. I didn't know that.
I was surprised because I looked it up like earlier today. So I was pretty surprised because
it was frozen under Newsom in the 2019 moratorium. Yeah, but they still have
2006 was the last time. But at the same time, even if you get death, you're convicted and you get the death penalty, it takes years and years until they finally kill you, you know?
Well, it could be a good thing if the person's actually innocent, like happened to Damian Eccles and people like that. But then we saw, the Manson family sitting there, living out their lives. So, yeah, it depends. Depends on who we're talking about. That's why I don't like, that's a good topic to pivot to. It's a big, deep one we could talk about. I really don't like the idea of state killing people for that reason, because of wrongful convictions. That doesn't mean I think that I'm not one of these abolitionists that thinks everybody can, be loved into being good and run around willy-nilly. But I'm against the death penalty for that reason. And how do you guys feel about that?
Well, yeah. But I mean, if the evidence is there, I mean, yeah. I feel like, I mean, that is true, especially if you're religious. It's not okay to like kill somebody, but also at the same time, with certain cases, I believe in like an eye for an eye. Like make an example.
I'm not sad that Ted Bundy's gone, for example, but and there are people that we have ample evidence that they're guilty. They even say that they're guilty, but just those situations where I think it's important to protect the one from the many. So like if even one person who's been languishing in jail for something they didn't do, to be executed for something they didn't do. I think that's so bad that I don't want to frame society around giving the state that power. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but like without what you're saying right now, I'm sure you've heard of a John Wayne Gacy.
Of course, yep.
So he got the death penalty, and he took it until he got murdered, or they killed him. He said that he was innocent.
Right.
He said the whole time he was saying that he was innocent, but at the same time there was so much evidence that he wasn't really innocent.
Right.
And
right.
then what's that other guy? I forget his name. The guy that would eat the people.
Jeffrey Dahmer got killed.
Jeffrey Dahmer, yeah, he got killed in prison.
Right. A lot of people do.
I think he deserved that.
I mean, here's the thing, and that brings up kind of ethical things. And for me, it's not about religion. I mean, I think we're wired to be angered and try to do something about bad people that could hurt us or hurt others. You know, like if you saw somebody throttling a child, or even not that much. Like I saw a woman pushing a child, and I got mad and got in between them and said, like, "Hey, quit pushing him." And you know, I mean, that's just your natural instinct when you see somebody doing something to someone else or doing something to you. But you know, that being said, you have to think about it in the larger sense. So what good does it do us to torture people in a prison? What good does it do for their victims? Is it a deterrent? Because like people that are really sick and crazy that want to eat people and rape them and grape them and stuff. Sorry, I said that word, grape. So they want to do these kinds of things. They're going to be that way whether we try to scare them out of it or not. I don't think, look at how violent, we have all these deterrents, and yet society is as violent as hell. So to me, we're going to lock you up in prison where terrible things are going to happen to you thing isn't working. So to me, it's more a situation of what protects society and what stops this from happening. So working on not creating more monsters in situations where they're created, like they're not born that way. Everybody's not. Some people are born with something wrong with them. We don't need to torture them for that either. We need to keep other people safe. So we could work on fixing them medically if there was a way, like if it's a biological brain thing, or we could work on just keeping them away from other people. Now, I don't disagree that I'm not sad that John Wayne Gacy isn't around and that Jeffrey Dahmer isn't around and that Ted Bundy isn't around. That being said, because there's that, you know, that there was a situation where we have executed people that's last words were, you know, I didn't do this. And later on we found with DNA that they didn't. And, you know, that's so horrible that I just feel like we can't willy-nilly, we can't expect the state who isn't even allowing, look at poor people not being allowed to test the evidence. The state can spend as much money as they want, but you can't. And I think that's something that needs to change. So if you have a piece of evidence that could exonerate you, you should be given the money to test it, to prove whose DNA is on this, you know? So with all those inequities, those are the reasons why I feel like we can't implement the penalty fairly.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm sure you hear about it all the time. People that are in prison for years and they end up being not guilty. Don't get me wrong. And thankfully they do ended up proving that they weren't guilty. And those are years that you can't bring back, right? But let me ask you this. How do you feel about bringing back like mental institutions with all the mental illness and stuff going around? What do you think about mental institutions?
Well, we have mental institutions. I know they've tried to see what Ronald Reagan was doing. In a way, he wasn't wrong. Like we were institutionalizing people in these horrible places where they're just languishing. And we still have stuff like that. But so it's like, this is horrible, throw them out of here. In one way, that was true and good because they were horrible places and the state was collecting money and these people were being GRAPED and all kinds of other things happening to them. And then they started these like private companies that would keep people in the community. And some of those are all right. Some people do really well, like group homes and stuff. But some of those are abusive, or depending on how much money you can spend, you could be in a good one or a bad one. So yeah, I think we should everybody can't live out free in the community. And that's one of the biggest problems. Like I remember walking around in Austin and I would know like someone you could tell.
Austin, Texas?
Yep. And
yeah, I've heard the homeless problem there is crazy.
I've got a lot of stories. I got a person that stood right in my face and growled like a dog, and I got out of his way, and then I got away from him, and he said, "Don't worry, I wouldn't hurt you because you already saw my face." And yeah, and not too long after that, there was a woman that was found dead on a park bench, like right there. And so, like, the homeless were actually unaliving each other. So it was really scary, and you could tell someone coming at you was probably a schizophrenic or something just by the way they'd be kind of looking and yelling at people and snapping and talking to themselves. So yeah, it's sad, and people shouldn't be in that situation. There should be somewhere for them to be.
Yeah, 100%.
If they could live though in the community and be managed where they're taking their medicine, that freedom also, that's good if they could have that. But you know, other people deserve to be safe too. That you just don't want to institutionalize people in these horrible places. And that's got another thing that's got to do with greed, you know?
Well, it's definitely a huge problem, you know what I mean? But I wouldn't say building housing homeless people would be fixed. But also, like how you said, like even like if you were to like make mental institutions a thing again in every state, you got to think about like, and it's not like people that would be abusing people. It's like the guards and stuff. It's like, imagine the mindset that you have to work at a mental institution and deal with these people.
Mm-hmm.
But because at the same time, it's like, how can you even control them? The only way is pumping up with drugs after drug after drug. But would that even like fix anything? Like, what are the long-term effects of that?
That's another thing I was thinking about one day, you know, like with all this new stuff they're doing where they're wanting to do like gene editing and stuff. I mean, we could be probably so far advanced in helping people, but because we don't focus on things like that, because it's not about profit, people still suffer. We're too busy making like 1,000, pardon me for saying this, but like boner pills and things like that people want to make money off of, instead of like fixing brains, you know what I mean?
Blue
Like,
chews and shit. Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. But what we do have now, you know, even if somebody has to take drugs for the rest of their life, as long as they would be, you know, compared to being unsafe and being out there, maybe stabbing someone because of the voices in their head or whatever, it would be better for them to be medicated. But yeah, it's a sad choice.
It's a whole thing too, and like also what my friend Eric Shun in my chat, he made a good point. Who would be the people that decides who's mentally ill or not?
Oh well, that's true. I mean, and that's a good question because sometimes.
And who's going to be paying for it? Who's going to be paying for all that as well?
Well, we already pay for some of these state hospitals, and they're horrible.
Yeah, 100%.
And I would rather have our tax dollars funneled into something that was, it would be worth it if they were quality places that really did some good. But yeah, in terms of who decides. Oh, hi, Andy. So who decides? I mean, that's a good question. And it's really scary because you can see people doing things like that potentially. You know, if somebody just has an alternative opinion of something, they do try to lump them in with people who are severely mentally ill sometimes. And they haven't been able to successfully do that in a major way. But, you know, someday somebody that wants to refuse something they're pushing off on society might be deliberately lumped in. And, you know, with them building all these surveillance systems and all these barriers to buy, sell, or trade if you don't comply, that is a possibility one can see happening.
I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, there's a lot of different places that are in the world that are way crazier than here in the United States. So it's like, look at Europe, for example. You know what I mean? The shit that they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
But so you live in like Austin or what? Because I have like friends in Austin, and they tell me stories all the time.
I used to live there, but I can't talk about where I live because of my court case because I have death threats. So I lived there a long time. So yeah.
You get death threats?
I do. Do you know
welcome to the club.
Oh, do you? Well, do you know what? So Yurf is going to do a show, and just to plug that again, Yurf is going to do a show on Sunday. He gets weird people saying weird things to him as well, because he fights CSAM, which is child sex abuse material, and antinatalism online. And so
Who is?
Eurif Dogs is what he calls himself online. He's on Finding Gnosis a lot.
That's who you have a case against,
No,
or
no.
against you?
No, I'm just telling you he's going to do a show because he has people that he fights online as well who are involved in the same type of activities that the people
Like
that
like weirdos and stuff. He's
CSAM,
like a pedophile catcher or some shit.
that and antinatalism, which and just to make it clear, there's a normal wing of that where people just don't want to bring more life into a messed up world, and I respect those people. And Eurif even is one of those people. That's how he was starting to look at that end of the internet.
That's actually makes so much sense because like me, so I'm 31 years old and I don't want to have kids because I don't want to bring them into this world because it actually is such a fucked up world. My friends have kids and my best friend, he has kids and he told me that he was gonna homeschool his children, and I asked him like why, and him and his wife they talked to me and they told me like basically because how fucked up the world is and how they're trying to like teach such weird shit in like schools lately that it's actually way better to homeschool nowadays and get them into sports early than to throw them out into public school and you don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? And it makes so much sense. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the homeschool kids routinely outperform the ones that are compulsory schooled. Hey, Christy and Crystal and Andy, did you want to weigh in on any of this?
Oh, what's going on?
I was going to say that I just didn't want to interrupt you. I was going to say that I've seen a huge influx in homeschooling lately. A lot of people share that same sentiment. They're terrified of public schools. I don't blame them.
Well, it's also too. It's like you could like send your kid to public school and they just end up getting beat up, like,
or sexually abused.
Yeah, even now with teachers and stuff like that. Like, I've seen so many like woman teachers also that are out there like fucking students and shit. That's so crazy. That's like the craziest shit ever. Like,
yeah, these are things that you would almost never heard about when we were kids, and it's like commonplace nowadays.
Yes, I remember when I worked.
It's way too common. It's way too common nowadays.
Yeah, when I worked in the schools too, I noticed like I would have never put my hands on a teacher, but the kids were just like very different these days. Like they would run up and grab you and stuff, and you're like, whoa, you know.
Well, social media is what it is too.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in elementary school is when like the flip phones were introduced when I was in 5th grade. So like I got like a flip phone. Me and my twin brother, we got a flip phone just to like be able to like call my mom or call my dad if anything went wrong or anything like that. We'd just be able to call them. When I was in middle school is when like they introduced like the whole iPods. 8th grade, I think they introduced the iPod Touches. 9th grade, my freshman year, they introduced the iPhones. And then like sophomore year, they had like Instagram. Junior year, they had like Snapchat, like all this, you know what I mean? So social media basically blew up while I was growing up. But now it's like, now how social media is, you could make so much money on social media, or you could literally just go so deep into social media that it's like you could go down a rabbit hole and get sexually abused without even like trying to get sexually abused. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
with all the video games, like all these different things too. It's like it's crazy.
There's a lot of almost grooming behavior in media.
Yeah,
it's the sexualization of kids, and then. But yeah, just to put that out there, you have just as much crap going on in private schools too. A lot of people don't realize they'll see the Christian label slapped on a school and be like, okay, great. And it's not really necessarily it might be a bit safer than the public schools because, and I didn't know one way or the other growing up. I always thought the public school kids seemed more free. At least they could wear their own clothes, you know, and I thought my parents were ridiculous for being afraid of public schools. Until I worked in one, and then I did see that it was rougher. than what I grew up with. So I don't doubt that your kids are a bit safer in a private school, but there's plenty that goes on in those as well.
I grew up in a California city that was once considered the safest city in the country, and even I've seen some crazy shit. But it is very, very strange how nowadays too, especially like if you look into the whole OnlyFans things, like how many people are like looking at like these people that are making like OnlyFans money, like millions of dollars, thousands, 20s, tens, thousands of dollars a month, and they're like, once I, you know what I mean, can start an OnlyFans, I'm just gonna be an OnlyFans model. Well, we're basically like with this whole OnlyFans models and with all the social media right now, people on social media streaming too, and like all this that's going on, we're basically the guinea pigs. We don't see the long-term effects of all this streaming.
You're starting to see it. The gray matter is shrinking.
Yeah, like right now we're the guinea pigs, but 20 years from now, where do you see all of these OnlyFans girls and guys? Because there's a lot of guys that are doing OnlyFans.
Hey, Aldi and everybody, do you guys know In America First?
Yeah, Nick Fuentes.
No, a person that's coming up onto the panel.
Oh, America First. That's
Probably sounds like Kenny.
That's Aaron. Aaron's cool. Aaron's cool. He won't form about
Oh, okay.
How are you doing, America First?
What's up?
Hey, did you have anything specific on your mind you wanted to
Don't
talk
say the N-word, bro.
Oh, you guys are talking about insane asylums. Okay. Hell yeah, we need to bring that shit back.
He's a big Trump supporter.
Oh, gotcha. My phone is ringing.
We gotta bring back the insane asylums and put all the
I think the whole country at this point is
we
a
gotta
giant.
put all these radical left-wing lunatics in the
I want to ask you one thing too. Let me ask Emily one thing. Emily, so I have a theory to like stop mass shootings in schools. If your kid goes out and commits a mass shooting, I believe that you as a parent or parents should get put to jail as well along with them. And that would set an example to where you have to watch your kids more. Because like a lot of these kids that do mass shootings, they're not being watched. They don't get any attention.
Yeah.
So I think that if your kid, it's like if your dog is let out. It's like if your dog goes out,
There's strict
hits your
liability.
yard and goes and bites somebody, who's gonna get in trouble? The dog or you?
There already are laws on the
Look
books
at
about
Billy
parents.
Madison. You better
There
go
are-
out and find that fucking dog.
There are already laws on the
That's where
books.
you're getting at, Doc.
There are already laws on the books about parents with kids in some of these shooting cases, actually.
Yeah.
And
I've
other
seen that.
deaths, mass deaths. With dogs and fireworks, there's strict liability too. And some of the stupid stuff people do with fireworks, one display, they like put them all around and they almost blew up their own car and scared the hell out of their kids and injured a bunch of people.
Oh,
And
that's
for what,
ridiculous.
People are
Absolutely
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
It really is.
I literally like on my
I had somebody throw a firework underneath my car. This was my freaking neighbor. They were out having a
that's literally like a
fire
bomb.
and stuff, and one dude threw an M80 and it landed underneath my car. I was like, dude,
That's literally like a bomb, dude. That's literally a bomb. That's fucked up.
I don't care if you're sitting there whipping them, but dude, you know I can do that, dude.
Dude, on my stream,
beat the living shit out of
Aaron, on my stream, like the week before July 4th, I was just telling my chat, like, yo, do not go out, play with fireworks. I don't want to hear about you guys blowing up your fingers or fucking your guys' self up. Like, please just leave the fireworks to the professionals. Like, why spend so much money for like 20 seconds of like like an explosion. Like fireworks are so overrated and stupid. Like it's stupid. You're lagging, Aaron.
Technical difficulty.
You're fucking lagging, dude.
My house, and fucking he just whoops the fucking. I got pissed, dude. I was like, dude, are you fucking stupid?
Time for a piano segue, guys.
Yay! Woo!
Thanks. Hey, I think everybody else left. They were probably sound of silence horrified.
They might have passed out.
Oh, it might be. That would make sense. So I think I'm getting close to wanting to wrap it up. Did you have anything you wanted to touch on, Andy?
No, I have nothing. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate you coming up. This was kind of a dragging day for me after yesterday was kind of a rough day. So I tried to have some stuff ready here, and I might get with DNW to see if next time we could actually present a few videos and things that would be okay to show on the channel. I just don't want to, risk any copyright or anything like that. But yeah, I value you so much, and do want to get with you sometime to talk about. Oh, we have Cougar. He's back now that the certain people have left. So we'll talk to him in a sec. Hey, Cougar, how are you doing?
Yeah, hi. I just want to jump on real quick before you split. Emily,
Yep.
we were kind of having an interesting discussion, and then that asshole jumped on. And I don't share a panel with people like that. I just don't. And that's not your fault. I won't do it. So anyway, we were interrupted by a fucktard, and sorry my language, I'm still pissed. Because you and I are having a good discussion, and what the hell? That's why we're here, right? We have to listen to assholes. So anyway, did we leave that in a place where there was nothing of importance to talk about, or are we done? Are you satisfied? Where were we at?
Well, yeah, it was kind of lagging because once you left and once we kind of couldn't pivot onto something else, I didn't quite know what to do. I just kind of tried to follow. I got rid of the most drunk person and the most troublemaking person, and then the second one had to go. And then Aldi is kind of, you can actually have a conversation with him.
I was just going to say that Aldi was actually totally tolerable today. I appreciate your sobriety.
Yeah, we were talking about some good things, and he was respectful, and we talked about the death penalty and some different issues with healthcare, mental health. So that was an okay convo, actually. But
the conversation with you, I remember us kind of leaving off on, we were talking about Nikola Tesla, how to learn physics for real if you're a layperson that hasn't really ever looked into anything, and avoid pseudoscience. So that's kind of where we left off.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just riff on that because you seem honestly and genuinely engaged. So I always appreciate that. And what I want to say to you, and really anybody else who is also engaged, is we have real problems. We're facing some very real, very severe. It's a polycrisis. We have multiple things on deck, and all the ones that matter to me, and all the ones that I think are going to be troublesome and even lethal, uh, revolve and resolve themselves in the physical world, physics, but also just the physical world. I just did a video before I started my busy day about how everything everywhere on fire, and I talked about how that happens and why that's important. And so I would encourage you to just continue to uh, have a working relationship with the real world, because the real world is about to turn on us like a cobra, and we are in trouble. We're in trouble right now, and it's not with the woke, it's not with the trans, and it's not with the Trumpites and the MAGAites, and it's not with the AFD, and it's not with any of those other things which are abstractions, which are entertaining in their way, but they're not the problem. The problem is physics and the real world and the rational world, and it's going to kill us. It's just going to kill us, and I don't want that to happen. And by coming on here and having these conversations and getting people to think about something other than Trumpism and the AFD and Nigel Farage, these clowns are trying to distract us from physics, and
or a word in Isaiah, whether it was this word or that word.
Yeah, it's dangerous. We're in a really bad place. So anyway, thanks for the conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate you
I hope
bringing us back to reality all the time too.
Yeah, and I will when I can. But also, just thank you for being open to it. And I think more people need to see someone besides me being open to it. I think it's important.
Yes, for sure. And a diverse range of people who pivot back to reality would be a great thing.
Yeah, once in a while. It doesn't have to be permanent. It can just be a hobby. Reality can be a hobby, but I think it's an important hobby right now.
For sure. Well, I appreciate you being here, and you have a wonderful night.
Okay, I will. Thanks a lot. See everybody on another time.
You too. Bye-bye. Andy, same to you. I'd love to get with you on kind of the topic of, and you've kind of revealed some things. You never know how much somebody wants to talk about stuff, but I get where you're coming from, and you're being immersed mentally in reality, and your inability as an intelligent person who researches things to just go along with certain things, which I do respect very much. It's not always easy to be that person. So I want to say that.
Thank you. I'm really not intelligent. People tell me that a lot. I promise you guys, I've had learning difficulties my whole life. I just happen to read a lot about ancient Near East history, so I know a lot about that stuff. But with most subjects, I'm kind of ignorant, to be honest. I appreciate the compliment, though. One thing I did want to say, though, is that I think you have really interesting posture with your right hand when you play the piano. And also, there was a part, I feel silly even saying this because I don't remember which part, but there was a part in The Sound of Silence where you hit the same note 4 times, or the same chord 4 times, rather. Mm-hmm. Interesting staccato that you put on that part. It was unexpected, but it went really good with the song. I like that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I kind of cobbled the songs together because I made myself each song so that I'd start actually playing again. I made myself do them in a week, and I would cobble together a combo of the synesthesia on YouTube and some sheet music, and just kind of cobble together. So sometimes I make stuff up. So I appreciate you noticing that. That's awesome.
I used to I played the guitar my whole life, pretty much since the time I was a little kid until now. And I sort of dabbled in the piano as a result because of how similar it is to the guitar. And I used to play, have you ever heard of Moonlight Sonata?
Yes.
From Beethoven? Mm-hmm. I used to be able to play that all the way through on the piano. That was like my only accomplishment on the piano. I don't have a piano anymore, so I can't play it, but.
I love that. You should, have you seen, can't remember the guy's name, but he plays to an elephant, and that elephant is really insane.
Yes, I have seen that, and the elephant loves it.
Yep. That's wonderful.
Yes, I have.
And there's also...
All right, I'm going to let you go.
Yep, an old Mexican lady playing her guitar with her chihuahua. That's another one. I got to find her name, but That's one of my
I'm gonna look that up now. Then.
Have a good night.
All right. Take care.
You too. And as usual, you never know what you're going to get. I do try to give people a chance. Maybe a little bit too nice about that. I think maybe the first sign of drunken crap maybe they should just be kicked immediately. They came back like multiple times and I didn't let them back on. So apologize for the intrusion, but I also do believe in, giving people a chance because maybe they're sober this time. Who knows? But all in all, I think we had a good time together. And I appreciate everybody who tuned in and left your interesting comments and thoughts. And we will do this again in the future. Please check out Yurf on Sunday. And I know Kenny is doing something on Tuesday. Gary Yourofsky on Monday. So lots of interesting. I think it's great the way DNW is letting people have, because when you get several people together back and forth, you don't get to hear as much from one person. So having Cougar yesterday do just himself talking about what he wanted to before people jump on, I think these are really wonderful. It's a wonderful way to do things where you can, kind of hear complete thoughts from someone, and then people they have more to work with when they jump in to interact. So everybody have a wonderful night. Much love to you all. See you hopefully soon, Sunday or whenever we're on again. Bye-bye.